Welcome back to another episode of Collector's Quest. I'm Tyler, here with Johnny. Johnny, what's going on?
Hey, man. What's up?
I heard you on the LJN podcast talking about Castlevania 4, the best Castlevania game.
Oh, did you hear me on it? Because you didn't make yourself known in the chat.
No, I listened to it after it aired on YouTube. You know how after there's an LJN podcast, it gets posted to YouTube and there's 7 views on the live stream replay? I'm one of those 7 views.
Oh, I've been waiting for it to hit my podcast app and I haven't seen it.
Go complain to those LJN guys.
I was on there and it was we had some fun. Hopefully they make it through this.
Make it through what?
That I don't kill them.
Right. Because once you're on a podcast, the podcast is over.
I mean, I was also on another podcast called Two Consoles Too Late, which did eventually air. So if anyone is interested in that one, that was like a brief talk. That was a little weird. It was fine. I didn't know the guy. He just asked me to be on and we had kind of a 30-minute talk about video games. It was very brief.
I didn't listen to that one. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You would not find anything interesting there, I think.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying it's like we were talking kind of about me and about like basic game stuff, which is stuff that we talk about here a lot. So,
and I also already know you, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So an introduction to me and an introduction to video games is really, really redundant for you. But he was a nice guy, and if you want to check that out, you can go. But yeah, no, I had some fun with Mike and Jay on the Lost Joystick Network, or as I was calling them, LGN, the Lost Guys Network. That's LGN.com.
That show stresses me out because they have so many guests. So I think it's like on that show alone, there was like at least 3 people who were calling in, which is,
oh yeah, that was weird.
I'm just gonna say it. Too many people, and not from like a listening perspective, just from like a managing and hoping that everyone you're talking to works out in the context of the show perspective.
I was stressed out for them. Yeah, I was like, we don't want any guests, and they're just like, we've got 5. I'm just like, oh my God, I feel such anxiety right now for all of you guys.
Johnny, I could tell you what I've been doing. I found a place on Earth worse than San Jose. Right after I brought it up again on the show, I went to a place and my first thought was, this is worse than San Jose.
Oh my goodness.
I went on a kayaking trip over Labor Day weekend to Portsmouth Island in the Outer Banks, North Carolina.
So North Carolina officially worse than San Jose. Got it.
Absolutely, yes. So on paper, you think of the Outer Banks, it's like set a couple miles off the coast of the U.S. They're just like these really thin strips of land, basically out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. They're nice beach towns, that kind of thing. It's, kind of shitty. You know how beach towns are.
Yeah, they like are very expensive, but they also kind of suck.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
they're like always a little more rundown than you think their price should.
Oh my! It looks like nothing's been like worked on since like the 1960s. Yeah.
And it's like shitty beach decor. There's like a crab on every door.
Oh my! Everything, absolutely everything has to be like a shrimp theme or something, and like surfboards.
Some bullshit. Yeah, they're like flip flops on half the decoration. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Okay, I know I'm on a beach because I can see it.
You go to the beach. There's no waves. There's no one surfing, but every bar has like a surfboard theme.
They're just like, we need something that tells people they're at the ocean. I'm like, well, I could just look out the giant windows every restaurant has because, I don't know, there's a fucking ocean right there. I don't know. That's just me.
So you go over some huge bridges and you get to like some kind of the main islands there. And then there's one that you have to take a ferry to go to. There's no roads leading to this island there. And then from there, we launched our kayaks and paddled 6 miles out to an uninhabited island off the coast of that. It's one of the most remote beaches in North Carolina on an uninhabited island. Sounds amazing in theory. Turns out the reason that it's uninhabited and there's no one there is because it's like a desolate swamp that's just filled with mosquitoes that do not care about wind or DEET or anything. So I had some couple days living on the beach in pants and long sleeves, still getting attacked by mosquitoes.
So wait, did you camp on this island?
Oh, 2 days, baby. Yeah.
Oh God, I thought you just went out there and then went back to like your beach town.
No. It was like 6 miles. I'm not going to paddle. It's like 2 or 3 hours of paddling to get back. No,
I didn't know. I didn't realize. Okay, so you took the kayaks to this horrible place and then camped.
Camped on the beach. Also, neither of us had ever camped on the beach before. Camping on the beach sucks. Yes. Even if this was an ideal scenario, like, do not go camping on a beach. Sand just happens everywhere. Also, like, there's no facilities on this island, so we had to bring all our water, so we didn't have like enough water to shower off. So the entire weekend, I'm just like sandy and salty and gross.
So what were you guys? What are you guys doing? Who is this friend you're with?
Because it's not Ada. My friend Donald. He's like an ultra athlete. He's like a champion orienteer, kayaker, runner. He does like biker. He does like all the sports. I'm like the opposite of him. Like he doesn't let his daughter watch TV or play video games because he's like that stuff rots your brain. He's like a really good parent, like not into media at all, into all these sports and staying fit. And I'm just the opposite, but we're friends somehow.
Yeah, I'm like that. That doesn't sound compatible. He's like, what'd you do? He's like, oh, I ran a marathon. You're like, I don't know. I hosted a podcast about video games.
Yeah. So anyway, it was pretty horrible. I got literally hundreds of bug bites. I now know the saying like bug bites on top of bug bites. I thought that was like an exaggeration. Like if you want me to get graphic, I sleep in a bug bivvy, which is like a very small mesh tent. And my toe must have been against the mesh one night. Like, maybe like 2 square centimeters of my toe surface area was up against the tent. I woke up, there must have been 50 bug bites in that 2 square centimeters of just mosquitoes who found like the one piece of flesh they could get to from the outside of my tent.
How much malaria do you have?
I don't know. Like if there's a new COVID, it's coming from here. And it wasn't, it wasn't so bad during the day. It was really at night when it got bad. But there is a ghost town on this island, Johnny, called Portsmouth Village. And like we were obviously on the beach where it wasn't as bad, but the ghost town is in the fucking swamp. Like I had an actual bug net on and they were biting through my bug net. That's how bad the bugs were. It's the worst place on Earth. Ravenous. I don't think there's a worse place on Earth than where I visited.
Tyler, that sounds horrible. That sounds so many more miles worse than a banal trip to San Jose.
Yeah, it was pretty good. At least in San Jose, you could like take a shower if you want to.
Yeah. Running water, the little things.
Well, you want to talk about video games?
Man, yeah, okay. So, you did that. I did the LJM podcast where I had some fun. Did you enjoy it? Was it all right? Or was it horrible?
It was all right.
I always feel like I'm like, it's so hard to be like on somebody else's podcast. I'm like, resist being in front.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, just the whole concept of guest is so hard. It's so easy with you because we have so much rapport and we like understand how the show works. Just having like a rando on is just too much of a wild card.
Well, yeah. And just like that, like, oh, this is not my podcast. So just like sitting there for like 5 minutes, just being like, all right, I have to just sit here and be quiet, which is fine. I don't mind. But I was like, I feel a little stressed out. I'm like, have I been too quiet? Do I need to say something now?
Yeah.
No, I don't need to interject. What am no, okay. I don't have to do anything here. Then they're like, and you can go through our notes with us. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, let's do this. It was, so it was fine though. You thought it didn't sound awkward? Because I felt awkward a few times. I had fun, but there was a few moments where I was like, am I being awkward? I don't know.
No, Mike and Jay are such good hosts. They would never let you be awkward, Johnny. Come on. They're so much better hosts than we are. Like a podcast. They must have like radio experience.
Yeah, they've got like, they're pushing buttons. They've got sound effects.
They like came in day one with like an audio setup, like a complete podcast audio setup with video streaming to multiple platforms with chat. Like blows us out of the absolute water.
Dude, they're prepped. They've got like the games that are examples and everything. And I'm just
like, multiple TVs in the background with the actual game playing on it. Like I can't imagine setting that much up for an episode. And they do it every week. They're going to burn out. Guys, you guys are going to burn out. Let me know when it goes bi-weekly.
Dude, and they have to play a game. Like, could you imagine if we had to do that and then also play a game for a couple hours?
Even a game like Castlevania 4, like Castlevania 4 is kind of easy, but like that's definitely, if you've never played it before, it's probably sit down and play for like maybe 5 hours before you beat that game. So like that's basically a gameplay day, and I can't do that during the week and then record a podcast and then go on to the next week every single week.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't played it in years, and I went through it pretty quick until I got to the end, and then it was just like, Jesus. And then I was just like, I mean, you always hit those points where you're just like, die. Okay, success. Yeah. And that the end of that game, like they talked about stairs being better in that game, but really, stairs are the bane of Castlevania's existence. Just stop stairs. I would rather just jump on multiple platforms. Stop with the stairs.
I mean, I agree with that, but I think the stairs are janky, and the developers know they're janky and design the levels around it, so I think it works.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. No, but just like stairs in Castlevania, it's like water levels in games. You're just like, no, well, I'm not doing the game thing anymore. But in Castlevania, it's become part of the game. Anyways, on to our podcast.
Oh.
Tyler.
Who do you think came up with the this episode, Johnny? So
this is a Tyler episode. I'm just going to throw it out there. And you may, or maybe it's Johnny episode. I don't know. What do you think?
I like talking about things that maybe people don't think about as much. Johnny.
I don't like the implication here. I don't like what you just said.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because now you're like, well, I like getting into the esoteric, okay?
A little bit.
And Johnny's a basic bitch.
No, see,
who
no,
wants
you're
to do dinosaur. He wants to talk about dinosaur games.
Well, you got me into that episode
bitch.
with a Japanese GBA game I'd never heard of, so I was totally in. That was great.
I know, but you're just like, I like to talk about this other stuff that maybe the smarter people, the people who are really thinking deeply about games think about.
No, you're on the journey with me. I know you're into weird stuff too. You don't want to make every episode about fucking Mario and Zelda.
No, absolutely not.
Although we do want to make every episode about NES, guys. NES turns out super good.
We got so many NES examples coming up. You guys can't wait.
No, I give Mike and Jay a little bit of shit every time they put out an LJN episode. So they have 5 people review the game every episode. And sometimes every single person has the same opinion. Like Castlevania 4, everyone gave it a 5.
I mean, I struggled to give some criticism to it.
Yeah. So, I mean...
That's not their fault, though. I did pick Super Castlevania.
It's your fault. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And to be fair, they said you can pick a game. And I didn't want to come on and pick a game that, like... I didn't want to experiment with a game that I hated. I, wanted to talk about a game I liked, and I went back and forth on doing Symphony of the Night or doing this or doing Bloodlines. And then I was like, Super Nintendo is like my favorite system, so I'm gonna do the Super Nintendo thing.
All right.
So that's on mine. And I was gonna do like a weird Super Nintendo game, but then I was like we're getting close to Halloween. I'm just thinking about Castlevania, so I'm just gonna do. So that's mine. I could have gone for something more abstruse, but I did not.
Okay. Like their next episode is Arkanoid, which is interesting because I feel like people might have an opinion about Arkanoid, but people, most people haven't listened to a 3-hour podcast about Arkanoid. Whereas a lot of people already have an opinion about Castlevania 4. You probably love it or hate it. And like, if you're going to listen to a 3-hour podcast about it, it's probably because you already love the game. You're just going to listen to a bunch of guys, give some trivia and talk about, this game's basically perfect.
And I don't think it's perfect. I mean, I don't think perfect score of a 5 means that the game doesn't have room for criticism. Yeah. But some people think that, they're like, well, if you can criticize it, it's not a 5. I'm like, that's not true, because you can have multiple games that are 5. That doesn't mean it's not a great great example of the genre and do everything right. It just means that there is room for something else. Some people say, a 5 is perfection, and I don't think 5 is a perfect score. I think 5 is a representative score of being great. And I think that's the difference. It's not like a test where you got an answer wrong, but some people view reviews that way. Like, okay, this has no flaws, so it's a 5. And I'm like, no, it's not a test. You didn't miss an answer. Like, you can still get a 5 and have like some negative commentary around it, even if your example, because if you ask me if Castlevania is great, I'm going to tell you Castlevania is great. Like, how much more do you want?
how you put the game into context and what you say about it matters a lot more than giving it a number, because everyone knows like there's good and bad with every game, even if it's a 5. What are we talking about,
Right.
Johnny? We're talking about dead genres.
We're getting into some really recondite stuff. We're gonna get
Not
dig
really.
into
I mean,
the
there's a
weeds.
lot of
Yeah.
popular games in dead genres.
Is it like are any of our examples on the Nintendo?
Yes.
Oh, really?
There's
That we're gonna talk
there's a
about?
Star Wars arcade preview disc
Oh,
on the GameCube.
ooh. Oh, very sexy.
But
That's-
I don't know where this topic came from. Maybe I was just thinking about, games that are interesting. But I think it came about because I was thinking about maze games.
And you're like whatever happened?
Whatever
Remember when?
happened to maze
Remember
games?
when? Yeah.
Maze games kind of don't exist, and it's not even that. It's like there are genres that have kind of evolved into something new and been surpassed, but just like a generic maze chase game, like basically Pac-Man is the prototypical maze chase game.
Cops and robbers.
Something's chasing you around a maze. It kind of doesn't exist anymore. Like the best you'll get is like a throwback Pac-Man game on like whatever digital download service there is now. I'm sure there's one that came out recently.
I mean, there was the one on the 360, which was great.
I mean, yeah, that's a while ago at this point. That was a really good game. Though.
Yeah.
Anniversary edition. Terrible
it's-
name
it's a
for
long time
a
ago.
game. Why would they name it that? But
I don't know.
so we're talking about dead genres with the understanding that no genre is ever truly dead, especially because of the indie
Because
game
that
scene.
which is dead can never die.
Because that which is dead can never die.
Oh, okay.
But like, just as an example,
Sorry.
I would probably call rhythm games a dead genre, even though I know on Nintendo Switch you could literally go get new rhythm games, and the arcade scene in Japan is thriving with new rhythm games, and like there are series over there with dozens of entries, like Beatmania and DDR that are still coming out. But for all intents and purposes, rhythm game had a big hurrah with DDR in the 2000s, and then another big hurrah with Guitar Hero Rock Band. And then like Rock Band 4 came out, and like Rock Band 3 came out, and then it was done. Then Rock Band 4 came out, and everyone was like, yeah, we don't need another one of these. We're kind of done with it. And collectively, like rhythm games are kind of languishing right now. I would call it kind of a dead genre.
Yeah, I mean, and like you were saying, if you're like, if you want to like push your glasses up your nose and wave your finger, that's fine. But like, yes, there are a ton of indie games, there are a ton of mobile games. Everything could have a game that comes out for it. But as far as the mental capital of the mainstream, being in the zeitgeist, these things are kind of over.
It's a great analogy, Johnny. It's like saying the N64 sucks. Yes, there are still great games on the Nintendo 64, but when you think about it overall, it sucks. All right.
Yeah, unless you don't think it sucks, and then it's like, how do I even talk to you?
So for each genre, we're going to go through 5 genres here. I wanted to pick one really early, either the first or like the first game that really matters in the genre, and then one just kind of classic example in that genre.
It's weird because you've got this example for the maze games, and I'm pumped because I know this game.
Ooh, you know it? Pac-Man?
I do.
You've heard of that one?
No, your first one.
All right.
I've heard of the Pac-Man. Well, it's a good one where the guy who eats the cherries, my favorite.
The first genre we're going to go over is the maze chase genre, and I usually call these maze games, but when you get into the broader genre of maze games, you can go back into the 70s, and there are so many games that are literally, it just makes a maze and you traverse it. So these are games where something is chasing you through a maze. And this is an interesting point. For a lot of these genres, there's not really a quick Google search that will tell you what the first game in a genre is, especially because in the 70s and 80s, genres weren't like ironclad, concrete, defined with like rigid definitions. So there is probably an earlier game than the one I'm going to discuss for a bunch of these, because the criteria for what constitutes a game in a genre is so loosey-goosey. It's kind of like, what's the first person shooter? there are games like Phantom Slayer, which don't have like real-time 3D environments and just have a crosshair that bounces around the screen. Is it really a first-person shooter? Kind of not, but it's part of the DNA of a genre. Anyway, you understand what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
Gotcha.
Heian-kyo Alien, Johnny.
Yeah.
Why do you know about this game? Because of the Game Boy port?
It's on Game Boy. It's also Digger. So, you know.
It is Digger. So Digger is the American name of it. I've never seen or heard anything about Digger. Where does Digger come from?
Digger. Where does Digger come from? Why do I even know this? I'm like, oh, it's Digger. Digger isn't also a Game Boy game, like, or is that the PAL one? Is it Digger on PAL?
It's probably Digger and PAL. That would make sense.
Digger. Well, I'm gonna look now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, it's on Nintendo. I'm thinking of Digger T-Rock. Never mind.
My God, Jesus.
Man, I know this. Why do I know this?
All right. Read the Game Shark right into the show. Tell me I'm pronouncing it wrong because I've never known how to pronounce this game. Heian-kyo.
I have no idea.
But
yeah, I'm like,
So you play a guy running away from aliens in a maze, and you dig holes behind you to trap the aliens. I always think of it like Lode Runner. You could also think of it like Space Panic, but it actually predates both of those. It's funny because Lode Runner is so popular that I just kind of assume that invented the genre. And I only learned about Heian-kyo Alien, like the actual gameplay, within like the past 5 years. I'm always going to think of it as like a Lode Runner game. But the interesting thing about this game is that it is an arcade hit that started on PC. So you can look up the story, but basically someone visited the University of Tokyo and was like, hey, what games are you guys making over here? Video games are the cool new thing. And they were like, we're not making anything. And then I don't know if there was a game contest, but people sat down and like, we need to make a game. And they made Heian-kyo Alien, this maze chase game, and they published it in IO magazine. So it was published in a magazine first, then came the PC 8001 commercial release. It was also ported to a couple other computers, and then came the arcade game. So if you're someone like me who looks at arcade port, like home versions of arcade games, you're like, ugh, it's not like the real version of the game. Like, I can't own Defender because the real experience of Defender is with the stupid arcade panel with like 5 buttons. You know, the real arcade Defender. You can't, like, Defender 2 on, that's Stargate. But on NES, that's not cutting it. Or Atari Defender is not cutting it for me. But if you want the real version of Heian-kyo Alien, a game I'm sure half the people listening have never heard of, you can go get it on PC 8001. It's a little bit uncommon. I'm going to say it's between $30 and $60 when it comes up on Yahoo Japan. I bet it never comes up on eBay. I also, so one thing I found, I was looking into the history of the maze chase genre, because this is kind of the game that will come up when you when you search for the first maze chase game. But then there's also games like Atari Gotcha from 1973. You remember that one, right, Johnny?
Nope.
This is a 2-player game, black and white arcade game, like really, really early arcade game. When you think games before like Space Invaders, it gets really primitive. It's a 2-player game where players are chasing each other around an ever-changing maze. So it's like a grid maze that kind of shifts as the game goes on, and one player's just chasing another. I don't know. This was like one of Atari's first games after Pong. Anyway, it could probably be considered a maze chase game. I'm just saying that because someone will write in and tell me it's not really the first maze chase game if I don't.
Oh, absolutely. Also, I found out why I know about Digger.
Oh, hey, why do you know about Digger?
Because I saw the box art when I was looking for Halloween games, and it has like some monsters on it. Also, the way Digger is represented compared to Heian-kyo Alien, they're like the same game, but not. It's like some of the sprites are a little different. It's presented a little bit different. I mean, it's the same game, but the box art is like a completely different cell for Digger, obviously. So anyways, the Digger for the PC is it's got like an orange truck on it with like monsters chasing them through a mine. Okay. So I was like, oh, is this like a monster chase game? Is this like a monster maze? No, it is not. Not really. So it was also on the they also did like some remasters and stuff like the Xbox era.
Really? All right.
Yeah,
Man,
360 like as
a
like a download game.
Huh.
Or maybe it was just part of their port packaging when they were like bringing all the Atari games over. Anyways, the other thing I read about it is that it's similar to Dig Dug and Mr. Do. Do you think it's similar to Dig Dug and Mr. Do?
I mean, in the sense that early 80s were like a really nebulous time for genres, sure. Not really.
Yeah, but
it's a lot more similar to Pac-Man and Lode Runner, I'll say that.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring this up because that's like what the article says. It's like these are the examples it brings up, but it's not, if you look at the gameplay footage, that's not exactly right. But as you were talking about things being nebulous and like genres not being well defined, like here's an example of people who said this thing 25, 30 years ago, and people are just like, yeah, that's true. These are the same genre, and not really. So it's like, is Haunted House a maze game?
I mean, it's not a maze chase game. I mean, no, I wouldn't call it a maze game at all. I think maze games have pretty defined mazes, and that's a series of rooms.
Isn't it? Aren't you trying to get out of a room? Don't you start and try and find an exit?
I mean, is Zork a maze game? Technically, there's a series of connected rooms in Zork.
I mean, doesn't Zork have like a maze on the cover?
I don't know. Maybe Zork has a barbarian on the cover, or just text a lot of the time. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Anyway. What is your point? What are you talking about?
I was just bringing up the nebulous. Like, I wanted to see what I'm I'm having a discussion with you. Okay, man, I'm sorry for trying to contribute.
So I know we're talking way too much about Heihankyo Alien, a game no one cares about. I think it's really, really interesting that it was ported to the Game Boy, or at least the Japanese Game Boy port came to America and they didn't change the name, because God, if there was ever a game to change the name of, Heihankyo Alien, like, mad props for like sticking to the Japanese roots. Even the advertising for the Game Boy game was like, guys, you don't understand. This is an arcade and computer smash hit in Japan. It sold hundreds of thousands of copies. But like, no one in America cares or knows what this is. I remember actually as a kid seeing this game at Funkoland, and I just completely passed it by because I'm like, I can't pronounce that, so forget it.
No thanks.
Anyway, I think a maze chase game that a lot more people can relate to is Pac-Man, Johnny.
Never heard of it.
So I know there's a lot of versions of Pac-Man. You probably get the Atari port. It's one of the most infamously bad ports ever. But
why? I would just buy the arcade cabinet.
Yeah, I mean, yes. If you want the real Pac-Man experience, Johnny, you got to buy a Pac-Man arcade cabinet. Mm-hmm. Would you believe it, Johnny? Pac-Man arcade cabinets are out there. They actually made a bunch of them.
Oh, you mean they can be got?
They can be got.
I no longer want them.
Okay. I'm not going to talk about boring Pac-Man ports. Everyone knows you can get some Pac-Man stuff. I want to talk. Nintendo. Shut up. On the Nintendo. Yes, 2 versions on NES and Miss Pac-Man. I want to talk about Puck-Man, Johnny. Everyone knows that
sounds like a bad ripoff.
Oh my God! Everyone knows before it was Pac-Man, it was Puck-Man, and the name was changed because you could easily turn that P into an F by like erasing something. It was like a vandalism concern to release a game in the seedy 80s arcades called Puck-Man.
I mean, did you ever see the way arcades were represented, like in media back then?
Absolutely.
Basically, it was all prostitutes and dirty needles.
Absolutely, yeah. It sounded great. I was only in arcades in like the 90s revival, but man, 80s arcades sounded like ne'er-do-wells and people in leather jackets.
It did. Like, they definitely had spikes in their jackets, too. Like, you were like, oh, man, their hair is tall. They've used a lot of Aquanet, and they're probably too badass for me. They definitely have, like, some sort of bracelet that has a spike on it, too. I can't compete with them. They might whip you with a chain. Like you know, when they would, like, show those gang fights and someone would just pull out a chain? That was arcades.
just pull out a chain.
It's just like, oh, my God, why are you walking around with a chain? And that guy's like, well, I had to lock up my bike. Have you seen where I am? You're like, oh, but okay, never mind. I don't have room for this, but continue.
Did people really crowd around arcade machines? Like if someone was playing Paperboy and it was like, he's getting the Paperboy high score. He's gonna do it. Chet's gonna do it.
I mean, I think you would sometimes see that. Like I remember people crowding around Street Fighter machines.
Yeah, so that's when I was in arcades, and I remember definitely people crowded around fighting games, and then when DDR was a thing, like people crowded around like people going crazy nuts in DDR. But no one gave a shit about high scores when I was in arcades. They're like, "What? You're playing a high score game? What's wrong with you?"
So, I did see, and this is not in the too long ago. This is maybe a decade ago, maybe a little more. But we were at this this event which took place in a backyard, and but they'd bring out all these consoles. It was a great event. But there was this guy who was super good at Marble Madness, and he did draw a crowd. He played Marble Madness like I've never seen anybody play Marble Madness before. You're just like, oh shit. Just whipping that ball around, it looked like a workout. It was crazy watching him play.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I've never beat Marble Madness.
The
last screen is just too hard.
Dude, he beat it, and I don't know if he died. It was crazy. We were just like, oh my God.
I bet he didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. The way he played, this is some guy who spent Call of Duty hours in Marble Madness.
I mean, if there was ever a game to do it, that game is literally 6 minutes long. So you will get really good if you put some hours into Marble Madness. I've just never had the motivation. Anyway, Puckman, Johnny. So there in Japan, there's still Puckman merchandise. You can go get Puckman stuff, which is really cool because it's the original name of Pac-Man. I don't think
if I saw it, I would probably turn it into Fuckman.
Okay. I don't think there's any video game releases called Puckman, but there's a Tomy LED or LCD. I don't know. You know that technology. What is it? Is it LED or is this before LED? Johnny, it's one of those little light up arcade games made by Tomy. It looks like trash, but it's Puckman. It's like those Coleco desktop games.
Yeah.
Except it's round. I don't know. The Coleco games are cool because they look like arcade games. This one's round. It's like the size of a game of Simon. And it's got a little blue screen in it with 4 giant buttons, no joystick, and you could play an approximation of Puckman. It was also re-released as Pac-Man, so you got to make sure to get the early version. But they're super common. Loose, you could find these for $20 easy. And complete in box, they're kind of available, a little bit hard to find nice, but $100, maybe $200, depending on how nice and complete it is. But to have the only game home release of Puckman, I think that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
I'm looking for one. So maybe don't mention it on my podcast. I don't know. I do that a lot.
All right. Yeah, that's the thing about our podcast. People are like, do you ever hold things back? And you're like, no, we're stupid. We love to create our own competition. No, I was just going to say, hey, do you remember back in the day when all those mini arcade cabinets meant you were cool? If you had one?
Yeah, people were way into those.
Yeah. Those were status symbols in game room shots. You're like, oh shit, he's got 3 of them. Oh my God, he's got it Frogger in the box.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And Donkey Kong? Oh my God.
Dude, this is stuff for what we thought was cool in the mid 2000s because there's so many of these things. Yeah, I didn't even think of this. I know we've had that episode idea kicking around. Yeah, those little arcade cabinets, absolutely a status symbol. I thought they were the coolest shit if you had one.
So
I didn't have any of them.
I
think I had I maybe had a busted Pac-Man, but with the stickers peeling off, it was not good. I just got one because it's I gotta have one because the cool kids
gotta have one of these. Yeah, I never bought one because I always wanted a nice one. I'm like, I'll get it eventually. And now I'm like, I don't give a shit. Where am I gonna put that fucking thing?
I got a complete in box Donkey Kong a few years back. It's the only one I have. Super cool. Yeah,
it is cool.
Johnny, anyway. I got one more Puckman thing. I don't know if this is still true. I guess if I was some kind of journalist, I could have looked into it. But last I heard, the Puckman ROM set in MAME is, it's assumed correct. They don't have a confirmed Puckman ROM that was dumped from a real Puckman arcade PCB. So they just got the ROM from somewhere. It's Puckman, so presumably it came from an arcade board, but I don't think the main ROM set actually has a confirmed Puckman. So you find an original Puckman arcade PCB, you could be the guy that dumps a confirmed Puckman. This might have already happened. This sure seems like something that would have already happened, but the fact that I'm even thinking of this as a story means that Puckman arcade PCBs might be kind of rare. So I don't know, maybe go get one. It'll probably cost you like $1,000 or something.
Yeah, you should go find one though, for sure.
We'll talk about it later in the show. Not that I'm collecting arcade PCBs, just that I'm kind of getting more okay with the idea of placeholders, meaning not needing to own the absolute first everything in cases like, I don't know, having a Puckman arcade PCB, not something maybe I need in my life. But everyone
like
listening to this should
out.
Absolutely go and try to find that.
Yeah, only the best.
I mean, it's funny. Puck, it turns into fuck. How could you not want that? It's the peak of humor.
I made the joke, and I felt bad after I did so. I'm like, that sucks. Come on. Get out of here, John. Do better. What's our next dead genre? Are we going to talk about it less than that?
Are we gonna? Sure. We can breeze through. I mean, we've talked about.
No, I'm kidding. What are we worried about? Time
No,
limits on this
I mean, this is kind of the one we've talked about a lot, but I think it is one of the deadest genres: single screen platformers.
Ooh, why? Why are they dead?
Why are they dead? Because Johnny, there's this thing that Pitfall did, and it flipped the screen. So now platform games often have more than one screen. And actually, if you look even further to games like Super Mario Brothers, the screen scrolls and it's like one long continuous screen. It's crazy now.
That's bullshit. We should go back to the way it was.
Check out this game like New Super Mario Brothers U. I think that's what most people consider the peak of the 2D platforming genre now. It's got like this scrolling screen. It's crazy. It's all over the place. Yeah, basically arcade games. So this genre isn't as dead as you would think at first glance, because when you think about it, there were games like N+. Do you remember? That was like a flash game that got turned into a retail console.
I played a lot of that on 360.
Yeah, N+. That's definitely a great game. There's other indie games like that, but for all intents and purposes, people are not really making single screen platform games anymore. And the first one, kind of considered the first platform game, kind of competes with Donkey Kong for the title. Space Panic, game with ladders that you can't jump, that has a similar trapping mechanic to Hyankyo Alien.
Ooh.
And we have talked about...
Space Panic is the first one?
The first what?
The first single screen platformer? That can't be true.
I think that's true. It's really it's a matter of perspective. Do you think a platformer needs the ability to jump? If so, you're probably going to go Donkey Kong. If not, you're going to go Space Panic.
Do I think it needs the ability to jump? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So we have...
And Space Panic came out before Apple Panic?
Space Panic came out before Apple Panic because Apple Panic is a ripoff of Space Panic, completely unauthorized. What? Yes.
They even kept the name Panic?
It is so funny how often they do that. Like these ripoffs from the early 80s, they are so shameless. It'll be like, instead of Pac-Man, it'll be like Pac Guy or something.
Yeah. That's what I was calling out, really. Is I love the conventions of theft. Back then, they were just like, by the way, we stole it because look how we named it. And Apple did that by putting Apple in front of the word a lot, which I thought was great.
All right, Johnny, so our two single-screen platform games, Space Panic, we've talked about Space Panic, Donkey Kong. We have talked about Donkey Kong to death. You can go get the Atari and Coleco releases of Donkey Kong, or the first console releases. Just go get them. I'm sure they're like $50. Or you can get the Game & Watch, which actually predated the console releases. Complete in box, I don't know, $200. I wanted to talk about Space Panic for one reason, and it's because of Apple Panic. So Space Panic, the arcade game, came out in 1980. For all intents and purposes, no one listening to this podcast is going to buy a Space Panic machine, even me. So your choices are Apple Panic from 1981. It's an unofficial port, but is like far and away the first version of Space Panic you can own, even though it's not official. For what it's worth, $50 to $100. Then there's the official ports on ColecoVision, which was 1983. You can get that for like $40 complete in box. And there's this computer called the Sharp PV1000 in Japan. This is super obscure. Just based on PV1000 prices, I'm assuming this would probably cost around $100. You're probably not going to buy this version. So forget about that one. ColecoVision versus the Apple II game. Which one would you collect if you could only collect one?
I would say I'm going to go with Apple Panic.
Ooh, why?
Because Coleco sucks.
Oh, I love it. That's a great answer. Oh, we made someone mad there.
Yeah.
There's something to me about the ColecoVision release, and I think this is a pro to most people, but it's a con to me personally. But those ColecoVision arcade ports, they show you the arcade cabinet on the box, and it just makes me feel like, oh, I'm buying like the shitty Coleco version.
Yeah, like the Donkey Kong one.
And they're showing me like the real cabinet right there. And it's like, oh, I want to be playing that one. Imagine how great that one is.
I know that, but they're trying to be like, look, you're playing the arcade, and you're like, no, I'm playing a half version of this. I got not what you just showed me. It feels like bad advertising, but I understand.
It's not. I mean, the ColecoVision ports are generally pretty good. I mean, the homebrew ports are nuts. But yeah, I for whatever reason, I just don't like the picture of the arcade cabinet. And we've talked about the box art to Apple Panic. It's got like angry apples. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's got an apple murdering people.
All right, that's all I wanted to talk about with single screen platformers, and we agree. I don't even have a version of Space Panic. Me, of all people, who talks about fucking Apple Panic more than anyone on planet Earth.
Are you gonna go buy this ColecoVision now?
Yeah. Let me just like go put this into eBay. You want to have some After Dark right now? Let me go buy Space Panic on ColecoVision. Okay. Oh my God, there's so many for sale. 59 copies. I mean, most of them are cartridges, but
59 is not very many.
Really? Am I just searching for like obscure stuff most of the time? No, that seems like a lot.
50.
For like, I mean, for a game that no one has ever talked about in the history of ever, Space Panic true. On ColecoVision.
But, well, I mean, think about that. That means that those are the only copies of the game. It's not like a game that's selling every day. So
yeah,
like looking at the results and not taking into how many sold were in the same period is hard to do. It's hard to like do that math now, especially as things just get auto repopulated. You used to be able to take and look at how many were current and then how many closed, like completed unsold, and then like do a formula a little bit. Now with the auto relisting and stuff, and the more days available and things being allowed to be available for like forever, essentially, it's harder to pin that down for rarity, for understanding rarity of a game.
Okay, Johnny, I've got a problem here. All right, let's there's two complete in box copies. They're both like $40. Okay. One of them comes with like a supplement insert and a registration card. It's clearly the version to buy, but it's missing the plastic slide, the thing that holds the cartridge in place.
Okay, those are common though, and going.
I know.
You can
so
buy
am I,
any game,
but like I'm not. I gotta buy another ColecoVision game right now because I'm not gonna remember to buy one.
Just wait till you're in Portland. Give you something to buy in Portland.
Oh, you're so smart. All right, yeah, let's. All right, we're doing it. $39.99, $10 shipping. Buying Space Panic on ColecoVision.
$10 shipping,
guys. This is what like happens in CQ After Dark. If you want to know, it's really this boring just listening to me buying video games.
You know what? I don't know the last time you bought a video game there.
You're right. Let's go shopping later today.
Yeah, okay. We can I don't mind doing a shopping episode. I enjoy those.
All right. You know, I'm feeling pretty good about it. This was the only this looks 100% complete. It's got this little supplement and a little registration card, and I was feeling good about that purchase, Johnny.
I don't understand. There's the $39. Yeah, and I also saw there's the $39 version with the $5.50 shipping.
Yeah, but there's no inserts. Who wants that? All right, Johnny, enough about the Space Panic. It should be the last time we ever bring it up on this show.
Okay.
Let's talk about a genre that you like.
Let's have a fight.
Let's have a fight.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's talk about rail shooters.
Rail shooters. Oh yeah, like Star Fox. All right.
Like, you mean like Time Crisis?
Yeah, like Time Crisis.
So in your world, Time Crisis and Star Fox are the same genre?
Time Crisis and Star Fox are the same genre. I'm not going to say they're exactly the same. So light gun shooters, I'm going to say, is a subset of the greater rail shooter genre, but they're absolutely both rail shooters.
See, I don't feel that way because the idea that movement happens in Star Fox means it's not a rail shooter to me.
But it's not like Descent where you're free to move in any direction anytime you want. The game pulls you along. No, but you can fly
all over the place.
No, you can't. You have
it's all pushing you to. It's all like this rounded map that you can kind of sail around. You can't go backwards, but you can cruise far left and far right.
But you can't go backwards. That's the point. You can walk around a train, but the train is always moving forward on the rails.
But the train cannot jump off the rails and go to the left or the right.
But you can within the train. You can move from the left side of the train to the right side of the train.
No, the train is too narrow. That's minimal.
It's a
that's
bigger
minimal
train.
Movement.
It's a wider train.
Look, if Star Fox, if you could only go up and down and do barrel rolls, I would be okay with it. But being able to move the full length of the screen and also make the screen move and make the camera behind you move, no, I'm out.
If you asked me, Tyler, name a rail shooter. Name the game that exemplifies the genre of rail shooting.
Crisis.
My answer would be Star Fox on the Super Nintendo.
You would say Time Crisis, you maniac.
But that's a more specific one. See, once you get into light gun shooters, yes, that is a major segment of rail shooters, but the broader genre of rail shooters is more exemplified by games like Star Fox and Panzer Dragoon.
You think more people, when you hear the word rail shooter, think of Star Fox than Time Crisis?
Yes.
No. No. Absolute. I cannot.
They're the same thing.
Hey guys, like and subscribe and make sure to comment below. And just so you know, I am pointing down because we don't know where below is in every single YouTube video. No, seriously. Someone's got to, I need some commentary in the Discord or on Instagram. Please, somebody tell me, am I the crazy person here or is Tyler the crazy person?
So I will say this is another situation where if you go looking for really good articles about rail shooters, because I wanted to find for the episode the first rail shooter. It's not a well-defined thing, and no one has ever written like a really solid article on the history of rail shooters. And it's one of these things where you look into the history of rail shooters and you start getting into the early 80s and you get into like these kind of shitty space games that have a pseudo 3D perspective, and one that'll come up is Buck Rogers. And like you look at that and it's like, this is just a shooter with a weird 3D effect in the background. I don't really feel like this is a rail shooter. And it gets really fuzzy, Johnny.
It does. And so even worse, so like if you go rail shooter, here's how I found the articles to be. It was like this big meandering gross list that could be like so loosely defined that they threw things that are clearly not rail shooters. Or it's just a list of like, here's Time Crisis and House of the Dead and Resident Evil and here's a couple other Wii games. Like that's it. Like I found that to be the list, you know, disgusting giant list of like an impossible net of games that clearly all can't be rail shooters, or stuff that is only like, these are only light gun games.
I mean, all right, you are, you're you can't come at it from like, there's so many games that can't possibly all be rail shooters when you're not even considering Star Fox a rail shooter.
I know, but I mean, these are games where like you can see yourself and you can move in the like the list of games. Like if you look at the Wikipedia article, it wasn't great. And then I looked at a few more rail shooter articles, also not good. I'm like, no, that game is like an adventure game. It's not a rail shooter. Like they had some bad examples. Yes. It's like, okay. Like what do you want here? So yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you, like, and that's why I kind of want to fight about what a rail shooter is. Maybe my definition is too limited. Maybe yours is spot on or yours is too broad. But regardless of that, let's talk about what we think is a good example of an early rail shooter. I don't want to talk about first, and we're going to go with your definition, and let's talk about Star Wars Arcade.
Fuck it. It's the first. Someone come at me and like prove to me there's something earlier than Star Wars Arcade that you would consider a rail shooter. And don't come at me with this Buck Rogers bullshit. If it's 2D, I don't want it. Star Wars Arcade is a 3D game from a forced perspective, because a lot of that 3D is not stuff you can fly around a good bit of it. Whatever. Johnny, Star Wars Arcade, we've talked about it on the show before. Absolutely excellent 1983 vector monitor arcade game. You fly through fields of TIE fighters and shoot them down. You fly along the surface of the Death Star, dodging turret guns and shooting them down. And then you fly into the trench of the Death Star, get to the end, and blow it up. And you get to see an amazing, colorful vector explosion. And the whole thing's over in like 3 minutes flat. It is just the perfect arcade game.
It's a great machine. It's got like a cockpit arcade machine. If you haven't seen it, it's something you want to dump your quarters into until you blow up the Death Star, because you're like, this isn't that hard, but I'm still dying. But if I just put a few more quarters in here, I will win. So it's got like a good balance for an arcade machine. And that arcade machine is super collectible. 1UP Arcade tried to do like a bench version of it. I mean, fine, whatever. If you're a 1UP Arcade person, that's fine. I don't love them, but if you want an example of where you could buy this, so you could get it on the GameCube preview disc. If you bought, which Star Wars was it? Rebel Assault 2?
It's in the episode document. Rogue Squadron 3.
Rogue Squadron 3.
Was it Rebel Strike?
Yeah.
It's called the limited edition preview disc. And you can't say GameCube preview disc, because I think that's actually that's an actual thing, GameCube preview disc.
Yeah. But yeah, this one, it had its own case, and you can, it's got some Hoth art on it if you haven't seen it. If you're a GameCube collector, you probably know about this thing. It's cool. But yeah, you could play the Star Wars Arcade on this, and it's not too expensive either. You can get it for like $15, Tyler.
Johnny, where else can you get Star Wars Arcade?
The arcade?
Johnny, where else can you get Star Wars Arcade?
The 32X.
Yeah, it's like $30, which is like, for a beloved game on like an obscure-ish platform. I realize it's like maybe the most common game on the platform.
It has an NFR, so. Yeah,
and it's a cardboard box, but still, like $30 is like a nice one. Like $25, like $18 for like a regular shitty one you'd get on eBay. Very affordable game.
Price. Yeah.
But the reason I'm pointing this out, Johnny, where else can you get Star Wars Arcade?
I don't know, Tyler. Where else can you get Star Wars Arcade?
Johnny, if you asked me where the ports of Star Wars Arcade were, I'd expect to go to Moby Games, and there would be just like this dumbass giant list. It would be like Apple II, Amstrad CPC, DOS. It would just have like everything in it. There's like two home ports of this game that were ever made.
Yep, not a lot exist.
And
there's a lot of Star Wars games.
And only one of them is the real game. Like, so the GameCube preview disc is Star Wars Arcade. Like, the 32X is like the 32X reimagining of Star Wars Arcade. I don't know if that has like some original Star Wars Arcade mode on it. I bet it doesn't. That's crazy, isn't it? I don't know. This is like a huge game, and there's basically two home ports of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have Star Wars on the Atari, which is different, and then you've got the oh god, what is it? What's that system? I'm losing it. It's the Japanese one, Death Star Assault.
That's a totally different game, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So I'm saying it's like there's games like it, but that game does not exist.
I mean, yeah, because like you think like TIE Fighter is like this game, but it's a much more modern interpretation, and like that's been remade and ported to everything. But yeah, I think if you don't have this stupid GameCube limited edition preview disc, it is so common. This isn't like there are 10 copies on eBay. There are like 40 copies on eBay, and you will spend under $15 for it. And it's the only legit, like, actual arcade version of Star Wars. Like, I don't know, is this on a compilation somewhere? Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
but as far as I know, I literally bought this disc back in the day just because I wanted Star Wars Arcade.
Oh yeah,
and it's,
yeah, me too.
I still think it's probably the best physical release of this game to own at home, and it's super common, costs nothing, and it's on the GameCube. People love the GameCube, and it's not on your GameCube list because it's a stupid pre-order disc, so you might not even have it. Just go get it. Cost nothing.
But what about Star Wars Arcade for the Atari? How are we feeling about that? Also, the Coleco, right?
Are you are those things? Like, I literally thought there are no ports of this.
No, there's Star Wars the Arcade on the Atari.
All right, well, if that's the case, then okay, wait, no, I'm wrong then. Are you sure that's really a port, or is this like we gave you like one level? That's
I'm not sure. That's why I was asking you.
You see, my whole rant might have been for nothing.
I can conflate the two because I always think of it. I mean, there's the Parker Brothers
what's
one
going on,
for the
Johnny?
5200, and then there's the one for the 2600.
What did I do? I'm I'm on Wikipedia now, and it's like Atari 2600, 5200, ColecoVision, Commodore 62. It's the big list of stupid things. Acorn Electron, BBC Micro, ZX Spectrum. It's everything. So what am I talking about? I'm out of my mind?
Maybe.
Yeah, just ignore everything I just said. Don't buy anything.
But still,
you can get an Atari ST version of Star Wars Arcade. There's nothing special about it.
You need to just delete everything you said.
Hold on. Let me go look at this Atari ST version and make sure it's like, oh my god, it's got like fake vector graphics and everything. Oh, this is awesome. Never mind. It's not even like GameCube 1's the only good one. This game actually looks like a pretty good conversion. What am I talking about, Johnny? I just went off about Star Wars Arcade for no reason.
You can cut all of that and not sound this stupid.
All right. Definitely don't buy the 32X version now, though. Now that I know there are other boxed versions that are better.
No, but the 32X version is an interesting version. And the GameCube version is also an interesting... Because I think actually the GameCube ones, aren't they just the Atari ones?
No, the GameCube port is the actual arcade game emulated on GameCube, yeah.
Okay. So the truest emulation of the game is still the GameCube.
Yeah, I bet it's the best version of Star Wars Arcade you can play. Like, because like the 32X one's like a weird like reimagining type thing.
Yeah.
Go get that GameCube disc. Still, I'm sticking by what I said. Everyone should own that GameCube disc.
It's still cool. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's a cool game. And if you want a game with a Death Star on it, and Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, then you can get the Star Wars the Arcade game for the Atari or the 5200.
All right, Johnny, that's one rail shooter, Star Wars Arcade. Yep. The first rail shooter officially, we're calling it. Someone write an article and put that as the first one.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want the Atari ones, it is the more expensive of all the Star Wars games there usually. So it's usually like $50 to $70. Sometimes more if you get, the condition is super dependent on these because they usually look like trash. 5200 ones can be, the Coleco ones are usually less, and the 5200 ones hit up in that same range, just so people know.
I thought all Atari games are worthless and they're all 25 cents, Johnny. What are you telling me?
That hasn't been true since COVID.
I think nice condition Atari 2600 games are underrated. But you know what? I'm not here to hype them because I want them, Johnny. I'm literally going to Portland, and the main thing I'm looking for is Atari games.
That is insane. All right. But let's talk about a more modern rail shooter that I know everyone thinks about. Super collectible. Time Crisis 2, right? No. Time Crisis 2 is collectible.
No.
No, I got a spiel here. Okay. So Time Crisis 2 is not that rare. It is about, if you get the big box version and you get the gun con and all the components that are supposed to be in there, it's like $100 and something. And
for the arcade version?
No, for the PS2 version. The PS2 big box version. Okay. So what I will say about this, you got Time Crisis 2, Time Crisis 3, you have Ninja Assault, Vampire Knight, and there's one more I'm missing, I think. Maybe that's it. But they're all really good representations of the arcade game. Like with the gun con, you feel like you are playing a light gun like rail shooter at home. Feels good. It really does. Like, I really enjoyed. I've talked about it before on the podcast. I love the experience there. If you are looking for like Ninja Assault and Vampire Warrior, or Ninja Assault and Vampire Knight have less available than Time Crisis 2. Time Crisis 2, even if the money's about the same in this $100 range, 150 for a nice one, even like sometimes as low as like 75, those two are less common. You're going to find them less. Obviously, Time Crisis is the franchise, but there's this other game that people love, and it's Panzer Dragoon, right? Everyone loves to talk about Panzer Dragoon, also considered a rail shooter. Got pretty expensive on the Saturn, and yeah, you can go get that. It's not Panzer Dragoon Saga money, but it's expensive. You can get Panzer Dragoon Orta on the Xbox, which they did a kind of a different take on that. Or you can go crazy and get this rail shooter. Here's your hidden gem pick. Go pick it up. This was another one of those, hey, like if you were a collector, this was like a cool thing you sometimes got to show off, and that's Panzer Dragoon Mini. So if you've never heard of this, it's an exclusive Game Gear game only in Japan, and it's notable because it's the first one of these Panzer games where you don't actually have a Dragon Rider, and it is pricey. It gets to be about like $500 to $700 if you want this thing, but yeah, pretty collectible.
That's a lot of money for a Game Gear game, but also Game Gear people are just out of their minds. You know, you want another rail shooter, Panzer Dragoon for the R Zone, Tiger R Zone. It's like $200 or $300.
Yep. If you want to spend some money on Panzer Dragoon, yeah. If you want to play Panzer Dragoon, you can definitely spend some money to do it. If that's your franchise, there's not a lot of games, but you could spend a lot of money somehow. Anyways, yeah, Panzer Dragoon, like, go look at Panzer. Have you heard of Panzer Dragoon Mini? Was that on your radar at all?
I mean, I've heard of it. I just don't care about Game Gear games. Johnny, do you know, like, I hate the Game Gear. It's like a trauma to me.
I know. That's why it's trigger warning. Do you need me to say, like, trigger warning, Tyler? I'm going to talk about Game Gear?
I can handle it. I'll get through it.
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, that game is like, oh, you got some cachet if you got that. So go check out Panzer Dragoon Mini. It's cooler than the other Panzer Dragons. Yeah, maybe Saga gets you more credit, but like, I'd be more impressed if I saw you with Panzer Dragoon Mini.
I mean, it shows like you're looking for like weird, obscure stuff and you want to be a cool guy. Whereas like Panzer Dragoon Saga is like, if I typed in top 10 rarest games of all time, Panzer Dragoon Saga would be on that list. Not that it has any reason to be on that list. I'm doing it. We're doing it right now. Top 10 rarest video games. Here, I got a top 50. That's the first result. Let's see if Panzer Dragoon Saga is on here. Yep, number 37, Panzer Dragoon Saga, 1998. It's the 37th rarest game of all time, guys.
All right. Woo! Definitely not true.
They show a PAL version. just saying what howchew.com shows.
Yep. They're like, man, it's so rare we couldn't even find a cover of the American game.
All right, Johnny, I didn't come prepared to talk about Time Crisis 2, which I realized we kind of just went through a bunch of random rail shooters. But yeah, Time Crisis 2, if I was going to pick a prototypical light gun game, my personal favorite is Ghost Squad by Sega. That's kind of a newer game. It's from like the mid 2000s. I don't know. I mean, a lot of them are so similar. I mean, you like Area 51, which I think is terrible. Like I just played Ghost Squad at a time in my life. Maybe that's what it comes down to. Like, that is a game I played at a time in my life where I really wanted to play some arcade light gun games, and I played a bunch of Ghost Squad, and then it got a port to Wii, which was awesome. But yeah, Time Crisis 2, I think, is, you know, I would maybe think of it as the most popular light gun game of all time. Is it crazy to say that?
I don't know. That and House of the Dead?
Yeah, okay. House of the Dead 2, I think. More than one, even. Yeah, so House of the Dead 2, probably. But yeah, sure. But I'm going to put Time Crisis 2 up there. Top 3, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Like, when you're out at the movie theater, that's like, they have one of those two in the lobby.
It is the movie theater game. Maybe not anymore, because, like, now there's a lot. It's probably a more modern light gun game. But for a long time, like, past, like, Arcade Prime, you'd go to an arcade, and you go to a movie theater and be like, oh, wow, they still have a Time Crisis 2. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, well, go play that one for, you know, it's like, I'm going to throw $1 on that, sure. Because it was always $1.
Yeah, I don't like when they upped it to $1. Like I want arcade games should be 25 cents first of all. Fuck inflation. But like, yeah, I'll pay 50 cents for a more prestige game like Time Crisis 2, but don't give me this dollar bullshit. Video games are literally meant to last like 3 minutes. I'm not spending $1 for 3 minutes of entertainment when I could go on my phone and there's infinite free entertainment. Come on, guy. Let me play Time Crisis.
So I meant to do this when we started, but I wanted to talk a little bit about why the genre went away. So with maze games, we talked a little bit about it for maze games, right? For single screen games, but why maze games went away. And I think maze games, why they were so popular on Atari and early systems, was just a limitation of the hardware, right? Like you couldn't do a bunch of different type of games, and it was pretty easy to do a maze game. And as systems advanced, I feel like that kind of drove away the maze game. Do you agree with that as like a reason why it went away, and just like the ongoing complexity increase?
I don't know.
Okay. That's my theory. And then, so you guys can all speculate with me and with Tyler whether that's true, but why did light gun games go away and rail shooters? I think very specifically, and for me, I still think of rail shooters as these gun games. Once CRTs went away and you didn't have an apparatus to really shoot the TV as well as you did, they just kind of started leaving in popularity. Also, these big, huge arcade units that would drive people to make home ports started to be created less and less as they got more expensive. So I think that's why you would still see like Time Crisis 2 and House of the Dead 3 for decades past their prime were still around. There was just not new advancements there driving people to make these games on systems, especially as you could not get them into houses. And then you got the Wii's, and now you've got like some IR blasting, like attachments to be able to do it. And you've got new modern sensors that are able to do this, but we hit this dead zone. And I think that just kind of drove them out. Also, they're usually not very long, and they're kind of expensive for what you get. So unless you like really love that, it's kind of a lot to put out. So I just don't think it does well in the home market anymore.
I mean, I
still occasionally try.
Over the past 10 years, I think VR is basically killing the light gun shooter genre. Because it's already got the expensive hardware thing figured out, because everyone who plays a VR game has that, and people are a lot more willing to pay for a shorter VR experience. Like something like Superhot is just not as long of a game as Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that was the other thing. So it died, and now it's also kind of morphed into this VR space. And, we're not here to speculate whether VR is going to be the future or not. I think that even though the technology's been around for a while, I still think it's too new to say whether it's successful or not. I think we'll find out.
VR probably isn't a complete fad like motion controls, but I also don't see it as like, oh, video games are moving to VR. The next console, I don't see a VR console on the horizon. People like traditional video games too much.
Yeah, well, see, you say motion controls are a fad. I don't think they were necessarily a fad. Like, yes, a fad in like console games, but I think it was just like technology paving the way for like, especially when you get into VR and other spaces. It was just like this weird stepping stone, like, hey, we're developing this technology. How do we monetize it? Even though it just didn't wind up in the best place.
And so you asked me, going back a couple steps here, why the maze chase genre doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know, Johnny. There's so many throwback games and throwback genres, and just not a lot of people are returning to the simplicity of a maze chase game beyond a complete throwback, like, here's another Pac-Man game. When you think of something like the first-person shooter, so those built up from, I don't know, Wolfenstein 3D, which is basically a 3D maze with some guys in it. And then in like early to mid 2000s, you start getting these games like System Shock 2 and Deus Ex and Half-Life, just like these really involved, complex games. Like that was maybe the peak of the genre in terms of like how complex it got. And I might realize there's obviously complex first-person shooters still coming out. But after that point, I think that there was some pullback, and you started seeing games like Painkiller, which was like kind of a back to its roots kind of first-person shooter. The genre pulled back, and they're like, oh, it doesn't just get better the more we add to the genre. if we pull back to like and remember how games like Doom used to be, those games are fun too. And I feel like no one ever does that with Maze Chase for some reason. Like people want to get back to shooter roots. Like look at the latest Doom games. Those are pretty simple, like almost arena shooter style games. So why aren't there indie Maze Chase games, Johnny? Is it just a boring old man genre?
I think it is. Like I said, like it was neat when the hardware was super limited, and you're like, oh, okay. And now, as it just went on, I think maze games are more. I think they're not maze games anymore. I think there's maze puzzles that are just layered into games.
Simple games are still good, and I think people are willing to pay for simple games, even if it's an indie game that costs like $8. Like, I'm not saying that we should make a game that looks and feels like high however you pronounce it, High-End Kyo Alien.
Digger.
But like if you completely jazz it up and make it look like Rez and add all these crazy effects and add interesting mechanics, like I feel like there could be another make a sequel to fucking Night Stalker. That game's an awesome maze chase game. They were doing that on the Intellivision Amico. The thing is, I don't even like the maze chase genre. I think it sucks. So I'm kind of defending a genre I don't even like.
Yeah, I don't understand what you're hoping to accomplish here.
Do we want to move on? Do you have anything more to say about rail shooters, Johnny?
I sure don't. I think I said my piece.
Let me.
Well, here's a genre we can both get into, though.
Oh, yes, it is the point and click adventure game, and I want to make very clear here. I'm talking about the point and click adventure game, not the adventure genre and not the graphic adventure genre. And I don't know. I know this isn't completely dead. There's a new Monkey Island game coming out. Johnny, what's the first point and click adventure game?
Shadowgate on the Nintendo.
Really close answer.
Am I right?
I thought about this and I realized I didn't have an answer because my first answer for like, what's the first graphic adventure game is like Mystery House, Johnny. That's not a point and click game. That's like a type in your commands type game. So I go and I look up what's the first point and click adventure game. It's Enchanted Scepters on the Macintosh. And it's like, I have never heard of this game.
No, you know what I actually think of as the first one? And it's not Shadowgate, because Uninvited is actually before Shadowgate. And I always think Uninvited is first. Like, I know people don't understand. Like, Uninvited actually came out. It was third on the Nintendo as far as releases, but it was on the PC before Deja Vu and before Shadowgate.
Okay, well, you're still wrong. All of these are the Mac Ventures series of games, and Deja Vu was the first one.
Oh, was Deja Vu the first one?
Yes. That's actually in our episode notes, even.
Oh, is it? Oh my god, I wasn't reading. I thought Uninvited was 1985. 1980, was it 1986?
I don't know. Deja Vu was 1985, though, as was Enchanted Scepters. And do you know what my first bullet point for Enchanted Scepters on the Macintosh, Johnny? It's, God, does anyone care about Enchanted Scepters? Because
I do now.
It is the first point-and-click adventure game, and it is... there's like a pretty big asterisk on that, because... it has sort of a desktop interface, kind of similar to what you think of when you think of Shadowgate and Uninvited games like that, where it has like there's a text box window and then there's the command window, or not the command. There's a graphic window that shows like where you are in the world, but then also it's this Macintosh desktop application. So there's a menu bar at the top, and there's three different ways you interact with this game. There is clicking on the graphic to move around. Most things you do in the game, you do by going up to the menu at the top and clicking. You'll click like attack with sword. And when there's no like interface to do these things. So when you need to attack someone, you just keep going to attack and then with sword. And it's just like this horrible menu interface. And then on top of that, there are also text parser commands that you enter at certain points in the game. So it's this huge hybrid of multiple genres. But because the Macintosh was such an innovator with the mouse, it does get the title of, technically, this was the first point-and-click adventure game.
Okay. All right, so not counting that, are we talking about Deja Vu then?
So if you don't count that, yes, basically Deja Vu is a much more traditional... I guess it's not super traditional, but Deja Vu is almost entirely driven by the mouse. Except I think there's conversations in the game where you type things in, at least in the computer version. But
not
all the adventure stuff is with the mouse, and it's not with like the Macintosh menu. Actually, I don't know, because Deja Vu is a Macintosh game. Does it have a stupid menu? I don't think it does. Yeah, Enchanted Scepters. It's so rare. It's not even for sale. There's none on eBay. There's none in eBay sold.
I was gonna say,
good luck finding
I
Enchanted Scepters. Yeah. Macintosh games in general are really rare. I've been searching for a Macintosh copy of SimCity, not the color version. That one comes up. The black and white Macintosh SimCity, very rare. Believe it or not, always, for all time, Apple computers are not seen as gaming platforms.
Oh, why? It's a joke. It's a joke.
You know what?
Sorry.
There's probably people listening who don't understand. Like, Macintosh computers before sometime in the 2000s, they ran on PowerPC hardware instead of like x86 architecture, and it's just stuff. Games, because it was a smaller market, people did not optimize their games for PowerPC hardware. So you only had like the developers who really cared, like Bungie and Blizzard. So you'd see like Marathon, and you'd see like Diablo and StarCraft. But other than that, you got a really weird mix of games. But I do think I've been collecting more Macintosh games recently. I do think Macintosh specifically is interesting. One, because it's rare, but also because it is kind of a unique computing platform, because it was like an early computer with a mouse, and it's like part of this Apple ecosystem where everything is kind of walled off. There's a lot of exclusive Macintosh games that no one has ever heard of. So, I don't know. I've been collecting more of those.
Going down that rabbit hole, huh?
I mean, the rabbit holes never end. Just don't collect video games. What are you doing? If you collect video games, go download one of those calendars that shows you how many weeks you have in life. Because when you think of how many days are left in your life, there's like thousands and thousands of days. You'll have all the time to get to that you want. Download a calendar that shows you how many weeks are in the average human lifespan, and then it marks off how many you've completed. So you'll see like, half your life is gone and you've only got this many weeks remaining, and you're spending them like buying video games on eBay and listening to the Collector's Quest podcast. What is wrong with you?
Maybe don't ask for people to confront their mortality on the podcast.
Yeah, confront it. Life is short, man. And you're on eBay, you're like, oh man, I need to find the right copy of Deadly Towers on NES. Like, oh, this one there's a ding in the corner. You're worried about a ding in the corner of your Deadly Towers? Life is going to end soon. It could end tomorrow.
Okay. So, guys, I want you to understand what's happening here. And this sounds like some impassioned plea from Tyler to like reanalyze your life, but this is bullshit. Okay, as someone who knows Tyler, I can tell you that this is bullshit. He just wants you to stop buying his games so he can get them. He's trying to get you out. Don't let Tyler sucker you.
What? Are you kidding me? Go buy all this stuff. I think it's great, Johnny, because the thing with me, I'm buying so many games all the time. You can't corner me out of any market.
Tyler,
if all the Macintosh games disappear tomorrow, I'll buy something else. I don't have enough money or room for everything I want as it is.
So your argument, and let me see if I understand this. Don't buy games. You're wasting your life. We should all stop buying games. Look at a clock or look at this calendar, which tells you how soon you're going to expire. You're mostly dead already. Can't you feel it in your body? You suck.
Yeah.
Stop wasting your time on eBay. Also, you can't get me off of eBay. I'll buy anything. I'll be here forever buying these games.
Dude, I bought a Space Panic on the show for ColecoVision, a console I don't like.
Do you understand? You were just like emphatic about no one should do this, then also said, you can't drive me away from this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's where we are. I still think you were just trying to sucker people out of your way. You're just like,
why would I even bring up Macintosh games if I didn't want people to buy them? Also, Johnny, I don't know if you know, people have like their own things that they're into, and it's all Nintendo, by the way. Like maybe someone will get interested in Macintosh by me talking about it, but for the most part, people would be like, wow, there's a crazy guy. It's really cool that he's really into Macintosh games of all things. I think I'm going to keep buying my Nintendo games like a normal person because that's what makes me happy.
You know, is that what makes them happy, or is that what makes them money? And
Like,
the money makes
what?
them happy.
Okay, John, let me say this. You talk to me and Joe all the time, and we're talking about like NimChamp tokens from the 1939 World Fair.
Yes.
I just bought a book from like
Talk about a dead genre.
from 1913 called like Practical Cinematography and its Applications. It has a page. So this book, Practical Cinematography and its Applications.
Is this from the French magazine?
No, the French magazine that's a little bit more tangential.
Oh, well, okay. Guys, if you want to know how exciting our Discord is, this is a conversation. Go on.
So this book has an old military training kind of simulator thing. It projects like wildlife on a screen, and then people would shoot real guns at the screen. And then when the gun went off, I'm not sure exactly how it worked because, believe it or not, there's no video of it. When they shot the gun, there was a sensor that would pick up the gunshot and then stop the video, and you could grade how good the shot was based on that. And like this is, I think we've talked about this before, but there were more versions of these cinematic shooting galleries, and it's kind of the earliest example of what you could call a video game. And like people don't look into this. People kind of like go back to like 50s mainframe computers and they're like, all right, this is really where we have to cut off what could be considered a video game. But me and Joe are looking into these things like shooting galleries on projector screens because technically there's video and technically there's a goal to complete. So is it a video game? I don't know. Kind of seems like a video game. So I'm buying books that discuss these old projectors, and usually it's like a single paragraph or a single picture in these books. Anyway, what am I talking about? So I'm talking about all this shit. You think like me talking about this garbage with you is going to inspire you, someone who does not care about this part of video games, to go out and buy the stuff I'm interested in? It's just not going to happen. You're going to buy Game Boy Advance complete in box games.
This is the second time you've told me how basic I am on this.
Oh my God, you're not
do
basic. You're buying like weird shit. You're like getting into it with like all the people in the Discord who have so many GBA weirdos talking about your turtle game seals.
Man, this show is off the rails tonight. I think Tyler's overtired. I think we're doing it too late.
I'm dehydrated and I'm drinking individually served bottle champagnes.
Oh, man. Just drunk. Tyler's drunk. No wonder he fucked up that Star Wars example so hard. Oh, man. All right. Anyways, there's a lot of point-and-click adventures. It's a very popular genre, even though it is mostly dead on life support. Not really. It's not like the thrust that big makers are going after anymore. It's not driving video games forward. It's not like what everyone's seeking to emulate. Any more you wanted to get into on this?
I don't know. Let me just bring up...
You wanted to talk about the Neverhood.
Just for a second, because the point of the show is to bring up the earliest example and then a prototypical example. And so, I mean, the prototypical example of a point-and-click adventure is The Secret of Monkey Island. We could talk about that forever. Who cares? I think the Neverhood is still a popular cult classic game, but man, if you don't know what the Neverhood is, I literally have nothing written about it in the episode doc. I think it came out in 1995 or 1996. It's a claymation.
Super weird.
Yeah, claymation point-and-click adventure game. It's got like this, you know what a point-and-click adventure game is. It's filled with like weird puzzles. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful game. Super moody, like to the point where it's like creepy.
It's Tim Burton-esque a little bit.
Yes. It was designed by Doug Tenapel, who did the Earthworm Jim games. Maybe separate the art from the artist situation. If you're a fan of Earthworm Jim and the Neverhood and have never looked up Doug Tenapel on Twitter, maybe refrain from learning about your heroes.
Maybe don't. Doesn't mean didn't make a fine game. Just maybe you don't want to sit down and have a drink with him.
Yeah. Man, if you were interested in claymation or adventure games in the slightest, the Neverhood is an absolute work of art.
My favorite thing about the Neverhood is that it's made by Neverhood Inc.
Sounds like a company that made one video game.
Yep.
Also, I mean, just so I know the Neverhood wasn't financially successful, but like when you play that game, you're like, oh, they put a lot of work into this game. I feel like the Neverhood must have lost so much money.
It looks like a game that people should own that also lost so much money.
I'm trying to like find a quote here. Ports and legacy sales. The Neverhood's total sales ultimately surpassed 50,000 copies.
Oh.
Oh, and hundreds of thousands of OEM copies were purchased by Gateway and pre-installed on their computers. So you know what? It sounds like it failed, and then they tried to make up their losses by probably selling the game super cheap to Gateway.
Oh, that makes sense. You know, you want a fun fact about it?
I absolutely do.
It came out on Halloween.
Ooh.
In North America.
Oh, you know, honestly, pretty good timing for that. The game is a little bit creepy. Definitely creeped me out as a kid. Maybe I'm overselling how creepy it is, but I remember like
It's a little creepy.
There's a lot of sections with no music, and you just hear the plodding sound effects of like your clay guy walking around. And like I remember the sky is like black in this world, so it's like a very dark claymation. It's just, man, guy, go play the Neverhood. I don't know. Anyway, it's like $200. It's one of these games that's kind of common sealed, so you gotta go get a sealed copy for like $300 or $400. Don't buy a jewel case. That's all I gotta say.
So there was a sequel to the Neverhood. Did you know that?
Skull Monkeys. I don't even know what it is. Never even considered playing it.
This is a good one because this is an episode I want to do. I want to do an episode where we talk about game sequels that are not the same genre as the game they are a sequel of. And Skull Monkeys is not a point-and-click adventure. It's a platformer.
Yeah. So the weird part about Skull Monkeys to me, though, I swear this is the dumbest reason for not playing a game. Skull Monkeys stars Clayman. It's the same protagonist as the Neverhood, who's like a character I strongly identify with. Huge part of my childhood. This was a game. There was a kid down the block who had the Neverhood, and I would go to his house and I would play the Neverhood for hours. We would like be sitting there together solving puzzles and stuff. So I love this character. You play Clayman in Skull Monkeys, but he is not on the cover of the box. It's just like some stupid fucking skull. So I've never played it. If Clayman was on this box, I'd be like, oh, fuck yeah. I love the Neverhood. But because he's not, fuck it.
Do you know why I was not interested in Skull Monkeys?
Why?
Because of the name.
Also an awful name. Yes.
Yeah. Also, it does have a lenticular cover, guys. So get that lenticular cover. It does say the Neverhood on the disc, by the way, like or on the case. And I don't know if it's because that's like Neverhood Inc. as part of it, but yeah, you will see that they are tied together. It tells you. And there is a picture of Clayman on the disc itself.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not opening the disc.
I know you aren't, but I'm just letting you know where he lives. Because, like, if you had asked me before I'd read up on it, if Skull Monkeys was a sequel to anything, I would have said no, first off.
All right. Well, I'm looking at Skull Monkeys footage right now. Like, this is not impressive. So they took the claymation style and kind of did like this almost Mortal Kombat type thing where it's a mix of video game graphics and clay graphics, but it is not the work of art that the Neverhood is, where Neverhood is like a movie basically.
Close. Though the Skull Monkeys is a fairly popular collectible now. Anyways.
I bet it wasn't super successful either.
No.
All right.
No, it's not. Anyways, I just thought there's some fun facts just about it. But yeah, I do want to do an episode where we talk about games where like they just took their sequel and like, you know what? Not even doing the same genre. You're like, well, if the game was successful enough to do a sequel, why did you veer off into left field? Sometimes that worked, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of famous examples.
Yep. You know what? It's actually 2 games down. Anyway, Johnny, what's our last genre?
Ooh, one that I never really got into, dungeon crawlers. First person.
So, yes. We're going to put an asterisk here because the RPG genre is very big. Obviously, there are still RPGs out there.
Yeah, but like traditional, like I would say like almost traditional RPGs, like of the ilk of Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest, whatever. Those games almost don't exist anymore.
Really? What is
I mean, you've become
Triangle
like
Strategy, whatever that game was called?
yeah, but that's like
Octopath
yeah. Well, Triangle Strategy, not those are like new versions of, but they weren't like really making RPGs like that anymore. And even the Final Fantasy games aren't like this, turn-based, combat with all the RPG elements that used to stick. Now we veered from it. So yes, RPGs still exist, but the RPGs that were built like that are few and far between. Unless you like
they
look
suck,
at like
Johnny. Turn-based combat is garbage.
Oh,
Thank
so
God
good.
we moved past it.
No, so good. This is a big mess in our world.
All right.
But I think the bigger problem is that people don't have like 55 hours to keep doing this.
I am specifically talking about first-person, party-based grid kind of dungeon crawlers where the game just drops you off in a dungeon, and the whole point of the game is to figure out all the puzzles in a dungeon.
Yuck.
Because, like, obviously you could look at something like the Elder Scrolls, and yes, a huge component of Elder Scrolls is crawling through dungeons, but also it's evolved into a different genre of this open world RPG thing. Also, so this was one of the genres when I was just like typing out, like, what are some genres we could talk about this episode? Immediately I think of dungeon crawlers. I'm like, there is nothing on the market anymore that's like wizardry. And then I look into it, and like there's this whole new genre of like medium budget anime dungeon crawlers. And I'm not talking about Etrian Odyssey, which is probably the biggest traditional dungeon crawling franchise that's still semi-active. You go on Steam and you look, there's a bunch of these games that have been like translated from Japan, and they're like these waifu, like hentai adjacent dungeon crawlers with just like anime girls. And so there is a bustling Eastern dungeon crawler scene, but when I think of Western dungeon crawlers, like I could not name one since The Legend of Grimrock 2, which is almost 7 years old at this point.
That is, what a weird transformation.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like there's a bunch of waifu games that have just like they're like, well, we really need to expand this genre into more than what, like, where can we stick more waifus? I sent you a waifu first person or shooter. I did that, not first person shooter. But
See,
like a space shooter.
I'm just like, Japan has this rich history of pornography games that just is not a big thing in America. I'm as someone getting,
when are we
more
doing the rich history of
this,
pornography episode?
I mean, we could. Actually, I don't think we could, because it would be a lot of Japanese games, and I'm just not familiar with it, like in depth enough to talk about it. But like a thing I do is I go and I search for just random computer games on Yahoo. I'll go through every listing for a particular computer. And when you get to some of these 90s computers, like the NEC PC 98, like a third of what's on there is pornography. It's like absolutely crazy how much porn is on this. And then there's like, traditional games mixed in. You're like, oh, hey, there's Doom, there's Myst, and then there's 4 pornography games in a row. Anyway, so you gave me Waifu Uncovered, which is one of these Western imitations of these porn games from Japan. But Johnny, there are so much more authentic Japanese porn games you've been giving me. That's just what I'm saying.
I know, but this was a Switch game, so, and you still haven't played it, even though you said you like co-op games with your wife.
Yeah.
I did message Ada about it.
I mean, if she's willing to play it with me, you know what? We just started playing another game, so it's not going to happen. But you know what? Maybe around Christmas, if you remind her when we're done with our current game, maybe.
I mean, I'm just going to tell her I'm really disappointed that Tyler never made use of the gift I sent him.
No, I'm making use of it on a shelf. That's what I do with all my other games.
I know.
A Calibeth World of Doom, Johnny.
You love to talk about this game. I don't even know if people hear you when you talk about this game, but you talk about it like,
do I
for
really?
a game that's really obscure, you managed to bring it up quite a bit. I'm just saying.
I mean, it's a really important game.
You are so into this.
I mean, if there was a holy grail of computer games, which I kind of don't think there is because it's so subjective of what you're into, like Half-Life could be your holy grail, and the game is balls common. Akalabeth is so important to the history of the computer RPG, and it's so interesting because it's a game that kind of wasn't meant to exist in the form that it did. So, I mean, you could look into the full history, but basically, Richard Garriott made Akalabeth as like a project for his own amusement, and then someone convinced him to sell it. And he sold like 12 copies of it, but one of the copies made it into the hands of someone who worked at California Pacific, a computer game publisher, and then they picked it up, and then they wanted to publish the game. And that's what led to the Ultima franchise, one of like the most important franchises in all of gaming history. It's just it's crazy.
Do you think we would be better off if Ultima was never made? Because I kind of do.
What are you? No.
Terrible. Hate Ultima so much.
What, you hate Ultima? So even if you hate Ultima, like everything comes back to Ultima. So like basically you'd be handing over the reins of the RPG genre entirely to Japan. As someone who almost exclusively thinks that the Japanese make much, much better video games than Western developers do, I think RPGs are something that we uniquely do right. I'm not saying JRPGs are bad, but I think Western RPGs, to my tastes, are better, and I think they're also, in general, better designed games.
Okay.
Because random battles and mini battles suck, Johnny.
Unless you like that.
How could you like it? How?
How could you defend maze games for 45 minutes on the show?
I don't know. I'm drinking, Johnny. Like, I'm not usually drinking on
Drunk.
this show.
You're like, it's gonna be a play. We got a show to do. I'm gonna drink. I'm like, wow, well, that's a choice.
All right. I've never beaten Akalabeth. I played it and I got bored. And I'm someone who has beaten a bunch of Ultima games now. So, and I play like some old ass games.
Just talk about how you grind on RuneScape. If you can grind for like 17,000 hours like you have on RuneScape, and then you're like, Akalabeth is boring. That game is trash.
Akalabeth definitely is a history lesson. It's a lot like Ultima from what I remember. You got an overworld, but then you dive into dungeons. There's wireframe dungeons. You find some wireframe guys and you fight them. You know what a dungeon crawler is. It's basically the first one. It's crazy.
I don't like them.
First one.
Man,
so it was
like wizardry is like such a neat. I was like, man, wizardry. This is gonna be so cool, especially wizardry 2. Oh man, I can't wait to play these. No, I'm out.
Even as a kid, as if Wizardry came out when I was a kid. But yeah, I could never ever get into the Wizardry games. The one I played the most was Wizardry 5 because that was on SNES, and it was only because on a console, like by necessity, the interface was a little bit simpler. But man, those games have a lot of text in them, and like
boring.
Obviously Wizardry, another one of these games that is like an absolute pillar of the genre. Like video games would not be where they are today without Wizardry. And like it kind of sucks to play Wizardry, but you look at the reviews of the time and they are like absolutely rave reviews. Like people could not wait to stop playing Dungeons and Dragons and sit down and play Wizardry, a game that is like really annoying to play and hard.
Yep.
And slow.
Well, it just like, and everything looks the same because all like textures aren't great. So like, you're just like, this is also a maze game somehow because I don't know where I am all the time. Just
something like, I love about games from the era. Yeah, it's a maze. A lot of reviews talk about the concept of a game being solved. So people will sit down in front of Wizardry and they're like, how do I beat this game? It is this bullshit giant dungeon full of puzzles. And like, I've got to solve it. And I'm going to make graph paper maps and I'm going to write notes and I'm going to do all this shit. And it's a completely different gaming experience. People do not sit in front of games and they're like, I'm going to solve this game.
Yeah, not at all.
Anyway, Akalabeth, kind of the genesis of the entire genre. And I'm saying that because Akalabeth was inspired by the Apple II maze game Escape, which is just that's just a 3D maze game with some other NPC kind of elements in there. But it is not a dungeon crawler. So I don't know. Is this someone will give me shit? And yeah, I know there are 2D dungeon crawlers on like 70s mainframes, like Petit 5 and D&D. But I think this is like the first wireframe 3D dungeon crawler. Anyway, you will never own a copy of this because it's so rare. So the original one, it sold apparently 12 copies. That is both floppy disk and cassette combined sold 12 copies. So
Ooh.
This comes in a 7x8 inch baggie with a blue cover sheet that has horrible art and says Akalabeth on it. The cassette insert on the cassette tape is also, it's a 4x4 blue insert. And there are so few copies of this game, people don't know if the cassette tape insert was in addition to the baggie insert or was instead of the baggie insert. If I had a cassette copy of the game, Johnny, I would want both inserts. The most interesting thing about collecting Akalabeth is that Richard Garriott, like space millionaire man, he grew up, and I'm saying he grew up because he probably made this game when he was a teenager or very young, and he still carried with him all the materials he used to make the game. So he has the original inserts to Akalabeth that he photocopied in 1980, and I don't know if he has the original discs or not, but basically he has the materials that he used to make the original 12 copies of Akalabeth, and at various points in time over the years, he has assembled new copies of Akalabeth from the original materials. Yes, very controversial. If the original developer of the game assembles a new copy of the game with vintage materials, does it count, Johnny?
It's a repro.
I don't fucking care. I would own one of those in an absolute second.
Yes, but like how we define that, remember, it's just lifespan, like lifespan of the item. Like, is it in its life cycle? And I would say no, and that's why it doesn't count. But yes, would you own it? Would it be cool? Yeah, it'd be like, also they only made 12, so who gives a shit?
I know, it's some of these computer games are basically impossible. It is so cool that he still has, I don't know how many he still has, but it's not even like he like made all the ones he has and blew them out. Like there have been like a gaming convention auction like a long time ago. He'll like make one and put it in the auction. And there was like an Ultima Online event like 20 years ago where he made one and auctioned it off. And that one in that Ultima Online event sold for like $450. And then he made a Kickstarter where the highest tier was $10,000. And for $10,000, you'd get a tour of Richard Garriott's house and one of these new copies of Akalabeth. And 9 people bought it. $10,000 quote unquote repro of Akalabeth.
Do you wish you could go back and put a bid in?
Absolutely, I wish I could go back and buy that. Are you kidding me? Like,
do you think those people were bidding for Akalabeth or the tour of the house?
They were 100% bidding for Akalabeth. I mean, like, you have to be a Richard Garriott super fan to want Akalabeth that bad, I think. So, like, obviously, you're still going to appreciate getting to meet Richard Garriott and all that kind of stuff. But like, given the opportunity to go back and bid $10,000 on something like that, like I would consider selling a big portion of my collection to own one of those copies of Akalabeth. So doubly so because, obviously there was this recent big scandal of reproduction vintage computer games. Like these are the types of games that had reproductions, and I understand that they weren't super good reproductions, but the manufacturing quality of a lot of these super early games that, maybe sold 12 copies was not super good to begin with. So if you don't have a real copy to compare to, it can be hard to spot a fake. So getting a copy handed to me by Richard Garriott for, yes, $10,000, if I have to sell my entire Xbox collection to do it, maybe that would be worth it, Johnny.
Would you have him sign it?
Absolutely, I'd have him sign it. Okay. And I realized that would mark it as one of the definitely new copies. I don't give a fuck. I have, and I'm talking as someone, I have 3 Richard Garriott signatures at least in my collection. I don't give a shit. Sign my copy of Akalabeth. All right. That's the first version of Akalabeth, Johnny. Second, California Pacific picks it up, releases it as a big baggie. It's 8.5 by 11 baggie. It's got a castle on the front. You'll still never find it. Doesn't matter. Then there's a re-release, which is probably the most common. This is a black big baggie. It's got a demonic dragon on the front.
That's the one I have.
Yeah. You'll never see it. Doesn't come up for sale. And then there's another re-release, the Pro Game re-release. This is a smaller format. It's like 7x9, I think. Yeah, you'll never see it, and you'll never own one. Maybe you'll own one of the later ones. It'll still cost you many thousands of dollars to own it. Someone get me in touch with Richard Garriott, and maybe I'll give him $10,000 and fly to his house. And
is he on Twitter? Can we let him know?
He's on Twitter and responds. Like Stefan has had a conversation with him because Stefan bought that library copy of a game from the Origin Systems library. And he's like, "Hey, is this your signature?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's my signature." Or he's like, "Probably, yeah."
Just think that could have been you.
I mean, it could have. It's neat because Stefan's thing is it's an R. Garriott signature, and all of my signatures are Lord British. But you know what? All my stuff is Ultima stuff, which is the stuff I care about.
So the last Alcabeth that I saw sold was the California Pacific one, and it was just the disc, and it was $760.
All right. See, yeah. I mean, without everything, I mean there's probably someone who was pretty happy to get that, but yeah, I need everything if I'm going to own a Commodore.
So there was a Commodore 64 version.
Was there? No, that's like an unofficial re-release kind of thing.
Beyond Adventure Lies. But that one, so they were calling it a prototype, right? That sold for $7,000, Tyler.
What? That's like...
And it was in North Carolina. It was in your backyard.
That was like made not that long ago. Like there's a company that put that out. That's
prototype.
Like a repro thing. It doesn't say,
market. It
literally says limited edition on the disc, doesn't it?
10 different high-res monsters. No,
it doesn't. Maybe you're looking at some kind of original thing. I thought that someone just they basically ported a Calibeth to Commodore.
This had 74 bids. They called it a prototype.
Is this on eBay right now?
Yeah, and sold. Go look at it.
What are you talking about?
Just type Alcabeth. And
am I spelling it wrong? Am I pronouncing it wrong? I pronounce this a Calibeth. Where are you getting Alcabeth?
I'm saying it wrong.
Okay.
I'm saying it wrong. I can't. This is a hard word for me.
This was 6 weeks ago. All right.
What the fuck?
What is this?
La.
Johnny, it says limited edition on it. This is like the fake repro thing. So much is $7,000 on this? What am I looking at? What?
For the Commodore 64.
What? So I know this was like a thing. Like I don't know if Richard Garriott endorsed this, but like he knew about it and has commented on it, I think.
Where does it say limited edition?
It's on the actual disc label.
Oh.
It says a Calibeth World of Doom Commodore 64 limited edition.
Oh, okay.
And the thing is, so these were okay, I get it. Okay, so this was like a numbered kind of repro release, and this is the prototype of that numbered re-release, because you can see this has a 0 sticker in the front where normally the number would be for the disc. You have to be a real specific collector to buy this at all, let alone to spend $7,000 on it.
Not only were there $7,000, there was 14 bidders and 74 bids.
Yeah, there was 3 bidders at the top. One dipped out at 5,000. One dipped out at 7,000.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And then one dipped out at 350. Like I could see almost maybe stretching $350 for an item like this, but like this came out in like the 2010s. What the fuck?
Yeah.
All
interesting. Right. I mean, it's interesting that a game that the lore of this game is so big that this could drive $7,000. That's all I wanted. I just thought that was interesting to kind of touch on.
All right, yeah. Yeah, I don't see. I'm not super excited about it. If this was Ultima 1, I would be kind of distraught that I would never own one, but this is the game that came before Ultima 1, and yeah, it has a lot of that Ultima DNA in it, but because it's not actually Ultima, I can kind of be like, fuck it.
I mean, isn't it really Ultima, though? Like, isn't it actually Ultima?
No, it's a Calibeth. I mean, some people call it Ultima Zero, but that's dumb because that's not in the name. Don't do that.
All right.
Don't call it Ultima Zero.
Yeah. Also, 0 isn't actually. It's not a number.
What? 0 is not
like,
a number.
Not
Where do you
like,
get your words from?
You can't count like it's not. Oh, let's count this one. This one's 0 and this one's 1. That's not how that works.
Yeah. Earthbound 0. That's what Mother is actually called. It's Earthbound 0.
Yeah.
That's a situation where, like, the Hyankyo alien, bringing that to America is dumb as shit because no one knows what Hyankyo alien is. But everyone who's played Earthbound knows what Mother is. Everyone who's played not everyone, probably a lot of people who play Super Smash Brothers know what Mother is. So why did Nintendo release Mother as Earthbound Beginnings rather than just fucking Mother? All right, what am I talking about? We got one more game.
I don't know. I was trying to drive you into a weird argument about whether 0 was a number, and you didn't really go for it.
I got mad that Earthbound 0 got released as Earthbound
I know,
Beginnings.
but I wanted you to be like, no, 0 is a number. And I tried to be like, I even tried to
so the problem
explain
you
that
made
it's not
too
a
good of a
counting
case.
number.
You said that you can't count to it, and I'm like, yeah, that
I
makes
know,
sense.
because 0 is not a counting number, but 0 is a number. There's a deep math argument why 0 is a number. It's also not negative or positive. People claim it's positive. It's not. It's null.
What are these claims you're making? People claim it's positive, like.
Yeah, if you ask people, like a big thing people will say that 0 is not a number. That's like one of their claims. And then they'll try to tell you it's a positive number. Because they're just like, well, we all start with a positive. I'm like, no, it's enough. Yeah.
Man.
It's
the scientists of the world.
Yeah. Anyways, it's is it a natural number? No, but it is a number. And there's a lot. Hey, go be a math nerd. I know there's some math nerd that's like got really mad when I said 0 wasn't a number. I know they're out there. Just please validate me and understand that it was a joke.
All right, I'm sorry I didn't bite, but you bit it yourself, so we're good.
I did. Well, yeah, because explaining the joke is always hilarious.
Yes. Everyone loved that part. Yeah. One last dungeon crawler. So that was my earliest one, prototype of a dungeon crawler, Johnny. We're going to just go with Ultima Underworld. And I realize I'm kind of breaking my own genre here because I said it's grid-based party first-person dungeon crawler. What? I don't give a shit because it's Ultima Underworld I'm talking about.
We're not just going to go with like Wizardry as the prototypical one?
I mean, I would kind of put Wizardry into that same first slot. Like, you could kind of put a Calibeth Wizardry and Ultima 1 all in there, and they're kind of like all together the most important.
Shining in the Darkness, whatever.
Nope, you can't put Shining in the Darkness in there. You know what? For the prototype one, you just want like a generic dungeon crawler that you can just like sit for like 15 hours and map out. Shining in the Darkness is a good one. It's not a great one. It's just one of them. Love it. Okay. Ultima Underworld, Johnny. Holy shit. Man, Whoa. This game is influential. It's like 1992. It's a real-time 3D dungeon crawling computer RPG. It laid the foundation of not only RPGs to come, but first-person shooters and first-person shooter RPG hybrids. Everything comes back to Ultima Underworld. You're playing Elden Ring. Oh, the game that was based on Dark Souls, which was based on Demon Souls, which is based on the King's Field series. King's Field directly influenced by Ultima Underworld.
But what was that like? Wasn't that influenced by Wizardry?
Shut the fuck up. Yes. Yeah, I mean, yes. Everything also comes back to Wizardry and Ultima.
Wah, 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 wah.
I mean, this should be like a project for someone, just like making the like a web of influences where like, you've got Ultima Underworld and then King's Field splits off of that and then Demon Souls splits off of that and then Dark Souls splits off of that. But then like you start seeing like the nodes that everything comes back to, and for like the RPG side of things for both East and West, just like everything starts coming back to Wizardry. It's just like, oh, okay, this is the game that just started gaming. Without this, we would be totally fucked.
Man, I have such a good article for you. Go on. I want to, before we end the episode, I want to take you through this article.
Okay. All right, great. I'm sure I'll love it.
Yep. There's really going to be a thanks I hate it moment.
Oh god damn it. Okay. Like Skyrim would not exist without Ultima Underworld. Like Deus Ex is it's a complex it's a first person shooter with a lot of RPG elements, super influenced by Ultima Underworld, even though that game came out like 7 years after Ultima Underworld. Half-Life 2 and Tomb Raider, the people who made those games said that they were influenced by the design of Ultima Underworld, and it is crazy to think. So if you think of Ultima Underworld, if you've never played it or seen it, hopefully you've played Daggerfall. It's pretty similar in style to Daggerfall. You can imagine like the interface with all the shit around it. It's a high fantasy game where you're walking through dungeons and you have a pretty janky control scheme that's laggier than you want it to be. That's all my opinions about Daggerfall, and they all apply to Ultima Underworld. The crazy part is that Ultima Underworld came out the same year as Wolfenstein 3D. Oh, it's so crazy. I don't understand. I mean, like, obviously, like, it is regarded as one of the most important games of all time, but it doesn't have, like, the mainstream, like, oh my god, Wolfenstein 3D started everything, when it came out the same year, and it's so much more advanced. Also, going back to Wizardry 5, you look at Wizardry 5, it is like, that came out in 1992 on the Super Nintendo, and it talk about going back to Wizardry. Wizardry 5 is just another goddamn Wizardry game. It's just menus and stupid grids, and then Ultima Underworld comes out the same year, and it's a 3D game you could jump in and like actually swing swords at stuff. Anyway, Johnny, everyone should buy Ultima Underworld. Oh my god, what a game. 5.25 floppy version and 3.5 floppy version on PC came out at the same time. And the thing you want to watch out for is that it comes with a bag of 6 metal runes. They are just little bits of metal. So not only is there a bag of feelies that you got to make sure is included till your game is complete, but there are 6 tiny little things you could lose, because you will see baggies out there that only have 5 of them.
Sadness resolves.
And the other thing to watch out for is that there's a variant that has a sticker on it that says like special promotional release. And you might see it and think like, oh my god, I found it. The promo release of Ultima Underworld? That was just a budget release that came out in some years after. They just slapped that sticker on it to make it seem special. Anyway, this game is like...
What month did it come out?
I've got my Ultimate Collector's Guide 2022 edition in front of me that I was using to research for the episode, Johnny. Let me go check.
Okay.
Johnny, this came out March 27th, 1992, both the 5.25 floppy and 3.5-inch floppy versions.
Okay. Sorry. March. Ooh. It barely takes the crown from Shining in the Darkness.
Takes the crown? What are you talking about?
Shining in the Darkness came out on March 29th. Maybe the true influence was there.
Johnny, what the fuck are you talking about?
They're
not even the same. I mean, they're the same genre. Oh my god, you're just...
I'm just doing this. It's a bit. Come on.
So I understand it's a bit, but the way you're thinking is that like a game has to be released before it can influence other games, and this is a game where specifically...
Oh yeah, no, Shining in the Darkness was definitely influencing games.
Oh my fucking god, Johnny. So looking into like id interviews, like id Software interviews, you'll see there's a conversation between John Carmack and the guys developing Ultima Underworld. And like the texture mapping specifically in Ultima Underworld was influencing Wolfenstein 3D, like while both games were still in development. So you want to think of the easy way of like, okay, a game has to be released and then like some developer played it and they were influenced by what they did. But like games are influencing each other while they're in development. Like these guys are going to like game developer conferences and like talking about methods and playing betas and stuff. So the history of influence games have on each other is more complex than you might think in a simple manner, is what I'm trying to say.
What a nice point you got to make off of my random joke.
Yeah.
No, that's all the things you said are super true and definitely not considered enough. Because people want to just like look at a date and say this is it. That is not.
Everything is Doom, Johnny, and everything is Wizardry.
Well, so how would you define, not just first person, like, do you think there's a realm of, like, when I say dungeon crawlers, I always think, and maybe it's kind of like the rail shooter for me. If you say a dungeon crawler, I only think of first person perspective. But are there dungeon crawlers that are not that?
I think so. I think
aren't those just adventure games?
So when I think of a dungeon crawler, I want to be in the dungeon basically 100% of the time. And I think the thing is when you go to an overhead perspective, it is so easy to just be like, okay, let's draw a town instead of this dungeon because all we got is this dungeon. We could draw a small overworld too. So what are some games I'm thinking of? I think Petit 5, we're going back to a game from like 1975. That is a 2D dungeon crawler because it's an overhead view and you are only in a dungeon. So I think that counts. Or what? Let me come up with a more relatable example. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons for the Intellivision. Is that relatable? I think that might count as a dungeon crawler.
Sure. Okay.
Does that count?
Yeah. I want to take you through this list of dungeon crawlers. The 10 classic dungeon crawlers every gamer should play.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Every gamer, as if everyone even likes dungeon crawlers. Like, what the fuck does that mean?
Well, that's why I asked you about your definition. And you'll tell me. Okay. This is written by Zach Gass, published in September of 2020. It's for thegamer.com. Okay. If you know what.
I mean, I'm the gamer, so yeah.
Yep, thegamer.com. Also, like Screen Rant, it's of this ilk. Okay, trash, in other words. Number 10, Wizardry. Doesn't specify which one or which system you should play it for, because that's never going to be important with a game like Wizardry. Just Wizardry.
All right, can I comment?
Go, please.
I think that no matter how much of, a Gen Alpha, I only play modern games thing is, I think people should play Wizardry for 10 minutes just to be like, oh man, they put up with shit in the 70s.
Yeah.
Or 80,
I agree, but where should they play it? Should they play it on the
I bet you could go to internetarchive.com and just play some version of Wizardry in a second.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like,
I know
this one is without qualification. They just said, "Go play Wizardry."
Johnny, because literally the person who wrote this article has never played Wizardry.
Yeah. Okay. That's their number 10. That's their number 10. You're like, oh man, if they're starting with Wizardry as the 10th example of dungeon crawlers, people should like familiarize themselves with. It's got to be a pretty deep list, right? Like, if that's their starting point.
I mean, it might be like this is like the special mention because we know kind of no one wants to play Wizardry 1 right now.
Okay. How do you feel about this one? The Immortal.
The Immortal? Is that a dungeon crawler?
I don't know.
Also, is that's on your top 10 list? So I haven't played The Immortal, but that's not really what I think of.
Yeah, don't worry. It gets better. Okay, Heretic.
Hold on. I'm staying. Heretic? I'm like looking up the Immortal, like, oh, maybe this is a dungeon crawler, and you hitting me with Heretic.
Okay, I said don't spend too much time.
There's not even a dungeon. It's got individual levels.
Hold on. We haven't even got to number 7 yet, Tyler. Dragon Quest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You go into those dungeons and you crawl them, Johnny.
Okay. Bard's Tale, specifically the remake.
Okay, hold on. So Bard's Tale is a dungeon crawler, but the remake, the Xbox one?
Yeah.
So hold on. I haven't played the Xbox one. I'm going to go look it up because I
want you to know they qualify the Bard's Tale as close to a traditional tabletop RPG as players can get.
Like, are they so I understand the person who wrote this article has literally played none of these games, but like, are they taking that from a review of the original Bard's Tale? Because I could see where they're coming from for that.
Nope. They specify the remake. In a world of no specifics, they got specific on that one.
Okay. All right. I bet there's a specific definition of dungeon crawler, but if you like, I want a dungeon crawler to drop me off, and basically it has like a splash opening screen. It's like, you're at the beginning of the maze, go in and get to the end of the maze, like get to the end of the labyrinth or whatever. And like, maybe you can pop out and go to a town, but if I could walk around the town.
even if that was true, how would Dragon Quest make that list?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it doesn't. But I'm just saying, like, the Xbox version of the Bard's Tale, it just looks like an RPG. It's a hack and slash RPG. So,
are you ready for number 5?
Yes, I'm ready for it.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to shock me after you hit me with Heretic. I guess if there are people who don't know Heretic, you can just imagine just Doom with a fantasy setting is basically what Heretic is.
Exactly. Number 4, Baldur's Gate series. Not even a game, series. Which Baldur's Gate series? The action RPG, Alliance. The computer RPG? Which one, man?
I mean, my experience of Baldur's Gate is walking around town. It's my favorite part of any Western RPG is walking around town. So that's not dungeon crawler. Come on.
Hold on. Diablo series.
Diablo. You know, I could see if you have a different definition of dungeon crawler that Diablo is, because like the point of Diablo is going through the maps. So
okay, sure. So maybe you'll be okay with this one then. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda.
I mean, the newer games call them dungeons, so I say the newer games, but like the first games called them labyrinths, right?
Yeah.
It
doesn't matter.
I know. Dungeon crawler.
Okay, and number 1, Gauntlet.
Johnny, I think this is like a define your terms kind of thing. Like, is any game where you touch any amount of underground stone considered a dungeon crawler? Or
how do we put Gauntlet, Wizardry, and Heretic in the same genres?
Yeah, I just, like, even like the Immortal, like, I'm not sure if that's a dungeon crawler or that's just an action game that takes place in a dungeon.
Yeah. So anyways, I was doing some research and I'm like, all right, well, I want to like beef up because I don't like dungeon crawlers, right? Like, I'm like, I don't like them. I should read up so I don't sound like a total fucking idiot when I talk to Tyler about this tonight. And I'm like looking and I come across this list and I'm just like, well, that wasn't very helpful, dude, but honestly, I'm sure Tyler will enjoy this list as much as I did.
Some of my favorite segments on the show are going to Google and typing in top 10 something and seeing how wrong it is.
Yeah. Anyways,
because we're snobs, Johnny. We're snobs.
I know we
and are. You know what? If that was someone's like heartfelt research lists, I wouldn't be making fun of it. But I know that they have played literally none of those games, and that is just someone getting paid by the word to write some stupid clickbait.
This guy has written 49 articles for them.
I'm not surprised. But he got paid $27 for each of them. This
guy is doing fine for himself in the world of writing articles. He's published 987 articles for Screen Rant. He published one 7 hours ago.
All right. Maybe he's big into dungeon crawlers.
10 horror movies inspired by Tales from the Crypt. 10 horror comedies that are actually pretty scary.
10 horror comedies that are actually pretty. What kind of list is that? Did he just go to like Letterboxd and type in like horror comedy? Let me look at some of these.
10 best alternative ways to play Pac-Man.
Okay, click that list. All right, I mean, all right, we're not in After Dark yet.
That's After Dark. I'll save his. I'll save it. We'll pick a few to go through. It'll be awesome. All right. Thanks, Zach Gass, for the content. I mean, whatever. Like, I don't know. Maybe this guy knows his shit and I'm a fucking idiot. This guy has 987 articles
Johnny,
published and I have 0.
The point of top 10 lists is not to make some definitive research nuanced thing. It is to get you to click the article. Don't start me with the
word definitive. I'm still not over it.
But the point is to get you to click the article no matter how dumb it is. That's why IGN puts out like the top 100 games ever made, and they intentionally like have like some fucky shit in the top 10 so people click it and complain about it. So this guy's top 10 alternative ways to play Pac-Man, Johnny, I'm clicking that every single time.
I know you wanted me to do it right in the middle of the show. Yeah, I understand. He got you. I mean, like this guy, whatever he is, he's good at getting the clicks, right?
I mean,
gotta be.
He's good at his job.
Yeah.
We're literally talking about, we're not just talking about an article, we're talking about his entire body of work. Yeah. That is how good he is.
Yeah. I mean, he got me hooked. He did, in that sense, he did a great job. So, yeah, don't want to shit on the guy. I don't want to tell people how to make their living, how to eat. But yeah, he got me. But I was confused by his. I was just trying to do some research, and this is why everybody's lists are bad, especially because you never know how they're qualifying things. Anyways, that's our 5 genres, right? Do you have any more you wanted to say about dungeon crawlers, or have we laughed enough?
Not at all. I just want to. I want to do a little recap because sometimes we get a little off the rails here, Johnny. If you have 2 takeaways from this show, the Rogue Squadron 3 limited edition preview disc is less than $15. Maybe the truest home port of Star Wars Arcade. You should probably own that. Come on, guys. And the other thing, just check out the Neverhood. It is an absolute work of art. Those are my 2 takeaways from this show. Everything else, just forget about it. We're just talking about some video games.
My takeaway is, hey, please define a rail shooter for me, because I was so like, I thought like we would say rail shooter and there would be no question. We'd be like, these are rail shooters. And you're like, nope, Star Fox. And I was like, I'm sorry, what the fuck? So
I think for everyone else, it's pretty defined until you get into the earlier 80s. Like, I think 3D World Runner, that's a rail shooter, but I think you might agree with that, which is strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
man.
Kinda.
Kinda.
But because the camera is fixed.
Actually, in World Runner, it isn't. Wait, am I thinking of the other game that's exactly like 3D World Runner?
Maybe I'm thinking of the other one. 3D World Runner is the one with the wacky colors on the floor and you jump over the pits.
It's like a ripoff of a game that has a motion cabinet. I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of this. Johnny, what is it? Space Harrier. It's just Space Harrier. Space Harrier. Okay, so let's talk about Space Harrier because I think we're more familiar with it than World Runner. Space Harrier, the screen does scroll a little bit to the left and right.
I don't know if I would say Space Harrier is a rail shooter.
That's like its only genre, unless you're just gonna call it a shoot 'em up.
Yep.
Nope. It's a rail shooter. You're on a rail. It's pulling you towards the background as stuff comes at you. That's all a rail shooter is. How did we get back here? Thanks for listening. Let's get
my takeaway. I was confused. But people, like, if you look at the definition of it, people are like, it's a third-person rail shooter, and I just think that, I guess I'm out of my mind, but yeah, that doesn't, yeah, okay. Also, you can shoot a woolly mammoth in Space Harrier. Just want you guys to know that.
Yeah, video games are cool, man. I love them. They're so cool.
You can shoot a dragon and a woolly mammoth. Like, it's not just a woolly mammoth; it's like a Cyclops woolly mammoth.
Adam A asks, question for the pod. Which purchase did you guys overspend or overreach the most on?
Ooh, that for me is going to be New Leaf.
Yes. Johnny, you wanted
New Leaf? Yeah, New Leaf for the Sega Genesis. I think I spent like almost $1,000, and then it was immediately someone found a box of them, and I've said it before on the podcast, and then they were all like $300. Like immediately after I bought. This was not one of the found ones either. This was like one that I'd been negotiating for months, whittling down the price after just like sitting and rotting for like 2 years. Finally got an agreement, and then a fucking box of them found. What are you gonna do? Can't win them all.
They're still pretty rare. And they're pretty cool.
I'm not sad. I'm just like, if we're asking like which one, like what is my oops moment, that would be it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty easy answer here. It's not even a game that I bought. So for Nintendo, the first, as far as I know, the first contest Nintendo ever held was for Famicom Disk System Golf Japan course, and the top 100 winners of that got it's a boxed game with a unique course on it. So they made 100 winner discs, and it's Famicom Disk System Golf with like the championship course. So it's a much, much harder version of the golf game. So technically, this is a Nintendo game, like not like a Nintendo published game. This is a Nintendo game that there are 100 copies of. and it's a contest prize, and it's the first ever contest Nintendo ever did. And I've only seen one come up for sale ever, and it was on Yahoo Auctions. And I like moved money around to bid $10,000 on it, and I fucking lost. So like that is I'm not a person who can spend $10,000 on a video game, but that game had everything going for it. I think it is like if I was to pick like the closest to NWC type thing of what I'm interested in, because that's all very subjective, it would probably be that. That just has everything going for it for me. And I'll never own one, because you know what? Now that one came up and it went for crazy money, if another one comes up, it will go for crazy money or crazier money. Like I was hoping to basically win that.
Or it'll go for less because the only people who were interested had got it.
I wasn't even the underbidder. So there were, it was me and one other guy. This was one of these things where we Yahoo Auctions extends the auction 8 minutes every time someone bids. And there were 3 of us at the end there. And once it got to $10,000, it was like $11,000. The other 2 of us dropped out. We were both basically the underbidders. But yeah, that was a ridiculous thing. And then I didn't win it. And then I had basically the rest of the year I spent I had $10,000 in my Zen Market account. So I just didn't put any money into Zen Market for the rest of the year. I know I could have transferred that back to my bank account, but you know what? I'm going to spend it eventually. That's
true.
Yeah, that was that makes me sad. I really wish I won that. You see, like now, like when I think about like actually selling games, because I have to sell games now, Johnny. Not a ton, but like I would give up my Xbox collection's worth what? Like I don't know, is that worth $5,000? Is that worth $8,000? Like I would easily give that up to own half of the disc that I was trying to get. So maybe I do need to sell some more stuff, get some more priorities.
Maybe.
All right.
Maybe you'll whittle down your collection to like 25 games. And you'll just be able to like buy stone plinths and like lights to shine on them. I
mean, I've like that would be cool. That's what I would do if my collection burned down and I had to do it again. Cause then I could spend all my time focused on like researching like weird shit with Joe, like owning the stuff. Like even some of the stuff I research is stuff I literally can't own. Like, yes, I bought a book with a picture of a projector shooting gallery, but I mean that's not really the history. It's a picture documenting the history. It's like such a weird thing. It would be much more interesting to organize everything I know into like a digestible format than it is to own a book from 1913. But I have the collector gene, Johnny, and I don't know. You can't get it out of me, I guess. Stefan did it somehow. Well, no, Stefan started collecting again. Stefan's broken. What am I talking about?
Well, we'll see if he follows through. We'll see.
Okay. Anyway, dude, is that a spoiler? Or did we already talk about that?
He said that on the episode, I thought.
He wanted like a set to collect during conventions, and he's going to collect the Super Nintendo set?
Maybe, or NES. I think he was going back and forth.
Just pick one. What are you doing? All right.
Do we have another question, or is that it?
I'm looking. Oh my God. All right.
Do one question.
Scott has this question. It's just so long. I'm psyching myself up for it, Johnny. This is just anecdotal evidence, but it seems like we're seeing a pretty significant cooling in the market. I've won a few auctions the past couple weeks on eBay and had to do double takes on my final price versus my snipe bid. The recent sealed auction was generally a bust. I'm guessing that was a Heritage Signature auction. This question came in August 15th. In the past week or so, some of the sealed guides have been liquidating a lot of stock on Instagram and high-end game room. Do you guys think this is just a short-term dip due to inflation and summer timing, or do you think we're perhaps seeing a market correction in the collecting scene? All right, so in summary, are video games down, Johnny?
Okay, well, time for Collector's Quest to get it wrong.
Are we at the bottom? Give me a yes or no.
No, we're not at the bottom. Are things cooling? Sure. I think I've seen some of that. I think some stuff is accelerated and a lot of stuff has like fallen off. A lot of the stuff that investors were going hard at. Do I think that's because of a summer dip? I think we're kind of past that, but we might be getting into the like kind of down area before the holiday kind of picks up and as people are evaluating their finances. I think we're moving into the new year and there's a lot of uncertainty. No one knows what the market is going to do. Crypto is still kind of not doing great. So I just feel like with that uncertainty does bring some dip. Like the threat of recession still exists, even though the market has corrected a little bit around that, but we don't really know. So is it cooling because of that? I think a lot of those people's money came from alternative streams, which have also been kind of cut off a little bit, maybe not completely, but at least lessened. So I just think the money they have to throw around is not as high right now. So investors would say buy in the dip, like let it cool for 3 more months and then buy, or 6 months maybe. I don't know. Will it be forever? It's hard to say because I think like, I know this is without looking, but I think like carts and this regular box stuff is still just doing fine, right? Like some of the Wii games I see are still coming in at higher prices than I expect, but not their highs. So yeah, we're always getting it wrong. So I would say, yes, I think it's cooling. Could it go lower? Probably. Is it forever going to stay low? I doubt it, but who knows? Evidence shows us that it never stays low, but I don't know what impact would be coming that's driving new sales right now. I'll say that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You can just peg my market sentiment at this point to just the price of Bitcoin. So right now, I mean, Bitcoin is a little bit languishing. I mean, it's like 20,000 compared to its recent high of like, 45 to 60,000.
Which is still a lot higher than it was like 3 years ago. Like that's
yeah. But like the price of Bitcoin is basically a made up number based on how much free money people have to pump into stupid bullshit. And the price of video games is a made up number that's based on how much money people have to pump into stupid bullshit. So, the price of Musha is essentially just a miniaturization of the price of Bitcoin that a lot fewer people care about. So, yeah, if Bitcoin goes back up, I bet that video game prices are going to go back up. And if Bitcoin goes back down, I bet video game prices are going to go back down. And that doesn't mean I think that they're necessarily directly related. I think they probably are directly related a little bit because the same type of person who buys Bitcoin probably maybe also interested in video games. But the same economic forces that would cause the Bitcoin price to crash, a price that is literally based in nothing, would also cause people to have less money to buy video games.
Yeah, and people they've had some trepidation about Bitcoin for a while, but so like, I just want to explain the Bitcoin curve for a little bit. So people who don't know. So about this time last year, Bitcoin was like 40 to 45. It was like kind of jumping around in September. And then it just had a big spike in October. And then by the end of October, it was up to like 60 something, 61, 62, hitting as high as 67. And then it started to cool in November of 2021 in December. And then it went kind of flat in January with some spikes, January through February and March. And then you get to April and it starts to go. And then by May, it falls off a cliff a little bit. So in April, it's like 40,000. By mid-May, it's down in the 30,000s, even dipping to 29. And then in June, we fall off a cliff again. 29,000 drops all the way down to like 20,696. And right now it's been flat from there, from that June spot to August. It's down a little bit, but not off a cliff. So right now it's at 2148. So it's higher than it was when it fell off the cliff completely. So I don't really know. That's what Bitcoin has done. So if we're saying, and I don't think video game prices cooled in that. I think there is some spacing that has occurred. So I think Bitcoin cooled, video games cooled after. So I think we're kind of like, I don't know, would you say like on like a 3-month delay or something, 2-month delay from like what Bitcoin has done?
I am absolutely not ready to draw that correlation.
All right. Well, I just say like that's how it seems to have gone. But if your assessment of like Bitcoin is true, and So I would just say watch that. But right now, Bitcoin's still super down compared to where it was.
So if you see Bitcoin go to $75,000 tomorrow, you're going to spend the next 3 months just like buying all the video games.
No, I would say you would wait. Like I'm saying, like Bitcoin goes up. Just because Bitcoin goes up doesn't mean people, or Bitcoin crash doesn't mean that people immediately stop spending big money on video games. I think, I think the market waits a little bit to see if there's going to be a correction, and people are still buying in that correction. Not that was probably wise, but yeah, who knows what Bitcoin's going to do? Could Bitcoin turn around and be $50,000 in like 3 months? Sure. I mean, it went in October, like literally October, it went from 42 to, 62 in a matter of 2 weeks. So, what do I know?
All right, Johnny, we really need to stop talking about Bitcoin price graphs because I'm on the show and I'm not even interested.
I know. I was just trying to like map out like what Bitcoin has done. So if people, with your analogy that it's going to like follow Bitcoin, that's what Bitcoin's done. But, we're still higher than Bitcoin was in 2020, guys.
All right.
There. That's all I got.
Johnny, what are you buying and what are you playing?
Oh, Tyler, you know what I'm buying? I'm buying some Super Famicom games that I got from...
Oh, yeah, you got good stuff.
From Mike. Yeah, so I got... Mike sent me this. I was so bad on this podcast. He's like, what are you buying? I was just looking at my eBay list, and I just like put those games upstairs, and I wasn't thinking about them because I was looking at my list. But yeah, Mike was really awesome. He gave me an opportunity to buy some Super Famicom games. I got a couple of Dragon Warriors, a couple of Final Fantasies that never came out here, or are misnumbered here. I got Metroid, Super Metroid, because it's awesome. Like the Super Famicom box for Super Metroid looks awesome. You've seen it, I assume you own it.
Yeah.
Like it's awesome, right? It looks better than
it's just
Super Nintendo
it's
one.
the Super Nintendo box, just not cropped. It's just
I know
what it was intended
to
be.
Yeah, so much better. Anyways, so I got that, and I got a Tetris because it's got a pumpkin on it. That's my only
Tetris
reason.
Battle Guide.
Yeah. He's like, you want this? It's got a pumpkin on it. I'm like, yep, that's one for me. It's got a pumpkin on it. So that's some of the stuff I bought. I bought some Halloween stuff, bought a couple of Wii games. Nothing super exciting there. What do you, do you want to know what I played?
I do.
I played some Super Castlevania.
Oh, yeah. That game rules.
Yeah, it turns out that game's a 5 out of 5. I played that. I played some of The Last of Us. Oh, that's what else I got. I got The Last of Us. I got the Firefly edition. Woo.
No.
Did it. Yeah. PS5 remake. Did it.
Nope.
Spent the money on it.
You're the
happy
problem.
to do it.
You're the problem.
I don't care. Like, look, remember how we talk about, like, if you're a super fan of it, doesn't matter, just go buy the thing that makes you happy?
You know, the thing is, if the fans unionized and they all refused to buy it, then that might force them to make The Last of Us 3.
But that's not going to happen. Can we talk about what I want for The Last of Us 3? I want there to be a Last of Us 3, but I want it to be during the height of the pandemic, because if you know, like, The Last of Us happens, Infection Day happens, right? And then you get 20 years later, you see Joel. That's when we meet him. I want to see Joel like year 5. Like, how the fuck did he get here? How does he meet Tess? How does Marlene become Queen of the Fireflies? I want to know this stuff. Show me some of that.
I feel like they have
Joel,
too many.
It's gonna be super unlikable.
Too many plot and emotional strings that they could pull if they made just another sequel and they could reference back to the first 2 games. That it'll be so much easier to just make a direct sequel to The Last of Us 2. But I don't know. Are they working on The Last of Us 3? I don't even know for sure that that's a game.
I don't think they are.
Naughty Dog typically makes like 3 fucking games of the same thing. So
yeah, I don't know. You know what we're going to get before we get Last of Us 3, right? Is a Last of Us 2 remake for the PS5.
Shut the fuck up. God damn it.
And I'm here for it. I'm ready. Here's
what do you
my money.
need? That game. All right. That game looks like real life. Like, I mean, I know it's not like, it's like 20 whatever console graphics, but that game's art style is amazing. It looks so good. What does it need to be better for?
How many Super Marios do you need to buy?
I need to buy all of them, Johnny.
Why?
Because I need the good one.
Okay. Anyways,
I need all the variants too.
I just like Last of Us. I don't even buy all the crazy editions. I bought the Firefly one because it has the steelbook, and I love the steelbooks because they're super important to me. Actually, it came with comics, which was cool. I was very happy. Those comics are kind of hard to get.
You got a graded issue 1? What's going on?
You say that, but I have 4 of them that I've got my little pile of comics I want to get graded, and my original covers for The Last of Us comics are in that pile.
Is it American Dreams?
Yep.
Is that the first Last of Us comic?
Yep.
Oh, there's not a lot of them on eBay.
Nope.
They're asking $600. Let's see what they actually sold for. Damn, 9.2 for $300.
Yep.
How
much is a raw one though?
I just looked for CGC. I don't know. If I look for Last of Us 1, I guess comic.
Yep.
And
you have to make sure you're getting the right cover. Yeah.
Yeah, I see like 1C, so that's the wrong
1 through 4, $250. That's like pretty good. All right, right? That's I don't
know. I don't want a comic adaptation of a video game. What am I doing looking at this?
No, this is a unique story.
All right. Go grade them.
I'm going to. That's my Last of Us collectible.
Did you tell me what you're playing?
I told you Super Castlevania and The Last of Us, remember?
Oh, you're playing that, right. I just thought it was like something you got because you got the Firefly edition. You're giving them money for the game they already made that you already bought probably multiple times already.
So many copies of it I own.
Whatever.
So many copies I own. It's great. It's good job.
I have so many games I own multiple different copies. I'm like, what am I doing complaining?
Yeah. This was mine.
No, I am complaining because I'm still mad that like we didn't get a new Super Mario Brothers game on the Wii.
That has nothing to do with Naughty Dog.
I know, but it's because people are willing to buy the same shit again. Because they're just like, oh, well, I can't get new shit. Well, it's the new thing. I guess I'll buy the same shit again. And
I look, I'm just not sad. I
know.
You want to know what kind of degenerate I am? So The Last of Us came out, and but the Firefly was getting a re-release the day after it came out on September 2nd. And it was at 9:00 on Pacific Standard Time, 12:00 Eastern, right, midnight. And I'm in Target, and I'm like I had to be like, do I buy a digital copy so I can start playing it? Because this is when I have time. And I'm like, no, don't. See if you get the Target edition, or see if you can get it. But my wife's like, we have to go to Target. We need all this stuff. We have to go now. And I'm just like, it's going to be 9:00. So I'm in Target trying to buy it before it sells out on my fucking phone. And you're buying it through the PSN store. So you never know what their infrastructure for that shit's going to be like. I'm just like, oh my God, I hope this goes through, doesn't get canceled. Whatever. Worked out. I got it. And then I went home and I'm like, I really want to play Last of Us. And I sat there looking at buying the digital copy for a good 10 minutes before I decided not to.
Wow. All right. I mean,
after I just spent $100. Oh, and the other thing is I finished Last of Us 2. I think we talked about this privately, but yeah, the bug got patched and I was able to proceed and finish Last of Us 2.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah. Woo. Did it. Anyways. Tyler, what are you buying? What are you playing?
Johnny, I got I've been buying Mario Karts, looking for variants and documenting PCBs. So when I'm done, I will have a super cartridge only copies of Super Mario Brothers. When I think I have found all of them.
Not Super Mario Kart. Not Mario Kart.
No. Yes,
Super
I am
Mario
buying
Brothers
cartridges
carts
of Super Mario Brothers.
I thought you were
PCB variants.
I thought you were documenting Super Nintendo Super Mario Karts.
No. So no one. I'm always complaining there's all these variants. No one cares, and no one's doing the work. Johnny, a copy of Super Mario Brothers is like $15-$20, and I'm just sitting here buying copies of Super Mario Brothers to document variants. Because you know what? If there's no crazy collector who's doing it, I'm gonna be the crazy collector who does it. But I did find something interesting.
Oh yeah, what's that?
I found a copy of Super Mario Brothers where the ROMs are EEPROMs, so they're erasable chips that have stickers over the window. So it looks like a prototype.
You found
basically.
A prototype?
So it's not a prototype. So I dumped it, and it's exactly identical to the retail copy. It is in the earliest revision in like a 5-screw cartridge with the earliest label, and there's no imprint code on the back. And I think people know that imprint codes are tied to certain factories, like where the cartridge was produced. So this has the back sticker, but no imprint code on it. So it seems special. It seems like something. The one thing that it doesn't have going for it is that the CIC chip, the security chip, the third chip that's on the cartridge PCB, has a date code on it. And it's 3 weeks past the earliest date code of Super Mario Brothers. So this was not like the first Super Mario Brothers off the line. But I don't know. It's got EEPROMs, and it was hand soldered. This was like 100% a built by hand Super Mario Brothers. So what is it? I ask a bunch of people, like the Josh Byerleys and people of the world, and they're like, I don't fucking know. What are you talking about? And they tell me to ask Frank Cifaldi. I ping Frank Cifaldi on Twitter. He's super nice. He gets back to me right away. He thinks that it's probably not something super special because it has the same ROM as retail code, and because the CIC chip is 3 weeks after the absolute earliest chip. So it might be an early repair, or it could be like a sample copy. He didn't really know. It seems like no one really knows what it is. Maybe like could it just be that people haven't opened up all the copies of Super Mario Brothers to find this variant yet, because who's opening copies of Super Mario Brothers? But then again, like, it's 100% hand soldered. It like there's no mass produced way that this thing exists. So I don't know what it is. I'm gonna guess that it's a repair or a sample copy. That's what most people seem to be guessing that it is. Well, it's pretty cool. And yes, in some sense, I only paid $20 for it, Johnny. On another sense, I've been buying a lot of $20 copies of Super Mario Brothers. So
don't worry, I'm going to get you that money back. You bring them to Portland, we'll put them on the table, we'll get you your money back.
All right. No, thank you. No, thank you. Got a cool thing.
Why not?
I'm doing the right thing, and what I'm doing with it is I put a little post-it on it that says hand soldered Mario. And I stuck it on my shelf next to all the other copies of Mario, so it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. And then when I die, everyone will forget that it ever existed.
If only there was somebody who had hundreds of copies of Super Mario that could just go through all of them.
What are we talking about? Chris CWR2?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's really funny. So he's got 700 copies of Mario Duck Hunt. And now I'm like buying these Marios and documenting PCB variants. And like eventually I'm going to have to sell them because, I mean, Mario, it's too much money. Like Mario being worth $20 for a cartridge now. But until I do, because I'm very slow and lazy, I'm basically building up this shelf. And it's like, oh, got 50 copies of Super Mario Brothers sitting on a shelf. Starting to look like a crazy person.
Yes. If only you were going to some convention where you could sell games.
Oh, yeah. People are flying to Portland to buy cartridge copies of Super Mario Brothers. Johnny, I'm flying to Portland to buy... I'm going to be buying more copies of Super Mario Brothers. I'm going to be like asking sellers, like, can we just like open up all your copies of Mario Brothers and can I take a picture of all of them?
You insane person.
Johnny, I got the Simpsons arcade for DOS. The only home port of the Simpsons arcade, and I've already said that on a show.
We talked about this, yeah.
Is that true? No, it's not. It says Commodore 64. So it was on Commodore 64 and Windows. So I got the DOS. I got the DOS version.
Still pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like we must have talked. We brought this up on the show, I think, a long
Yes,
time
we did.
ago, and it has tripled in price since then. I'm almost positive
Oh my
I paid
God.
more for this than any other person on Earth. It was a second chance offer too, so I paid literally my absolute max. Um, but it's like 100% complete. It's got all the inserts. It's fine. It's got a really striking green box. It's a pretty cool game, I think. And last cool thing I got, Johnny, I bought another copy of Ultimate Exodus. This is probably like my fourth copy of Ultimate Exodus that I own. So, first print copies of Ultimate Exodus, they have a Houston address on the back. They were when Origin was still running out of Richard Garriott's garage. Ultimate Exodus comes with a like a 8.5 by 11 insert, like a folded up piece of paper that's like it's telling you to buy a hint book, and that insert also has an address on it. And so there's a variant of that insert that comes with the new address, and there's a variant of the insert that comes with the Houston address. And I didn't have the Houston insert, so I had to buy a whole nother copy of Ultimate Exodus to get my insert variant. And now I think my copy is 100% complete.
Congrats, you crazy person.
Yeah. Oh man, I literally like 3 years ago, I'm like, Ultima's for crazy people. Who the fuck cares about Ultima? What's with all these PC people caring about Ultima? And now I'm just like, yeah, I bought a fourth copy of Ultima to get the correct insert. Yeah, Ultima's pretty cool, man.
You're a maniac. Okay.
I've been playing Arcade Paradise. Have you heard of this game?
I mean, yes, because you told me about it.
All right. It's a management. It's half like laundromat management game and then half retro game challenge. So there's like a lot of boring business simulation where you're literally like doing laundry for people and picking garbage up off the floor. It's a game for a very particular kind of person, I think, and I'm into that kind of thing sometimes. And then the other half is like a bunch of fake retro games in the style of like you'll be playing a game and it's like it's Rally X, but it's like skinned as if it was a Grand Theft Auto game. And you got to complete all the challenges and you got to make money in your laundromat. It's a cool game. Cool. It's only like $20. And then I started Divinity Original Sin 2 with Ada again. I don't remember if I mentioned that.
Oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah, so my first playthrough with that I think was 207 hours. So we downloaded the something extended mod. It's a mod that like rebalances everything, makes like all new spells, changes all the combat, and makes the game way harder because it's for expert players, Johnny. It's like, what kind of psychopath is going in and like retuning? Like there's this amazing professionally developed game and like some like crazy people on GitHub are just like, what if we just like fucked around with like everything and just like made all the systems different and made it way harder? Like what psycho? This isn't something you go and like nexusmods.com and download. There's like a link floating around to a Google document that takes you to like a Dropbox link. And that's it. And it's like, this mod is fucking huge. And there's no website for it. It's just for crazy people.
You are crazy.
Yes. Like my wife loves this game more than anything except for Wasteland 3 of all games. So we have been playing that for about 5 hours. We've made it absolutely nowhere because man, do I take my time playing this game. Man,
I hope for you that it's just like too hard and you guys stop playing.
I mean, I basically, we had like the conversation before we played it. It's like, if we're going to play this game again, if I'm going to spend hundreds of hours of my life on this same exact game again, I kind of want a somewhat of a different experience. Like, it's my favorite computer RPG. I could just play it again, but like knowing that this exists and then playing it again would be weighing on my mind the whole time. So we're going to play it again, but please understand, like, it's going to be a lot harder because we didn't even play it on normal difficulty because it was too hard for us. We played it on the easy difficulty, and now we're doing a mod that makes it even harder than the regular game. So she was cool with it, and we're dying in battles and reloading a lot.
You are crazy people.
Yeah. It's like an old game. It's like we get to battles. It's like, it seems like a total filler battle. It'll be like, oh, you're going along the beach in the starter area and you come across 3 alligators. And it's like, 3 alligators? Those are the starter areas. And it'll just be like, this battle's too hard for us. We need to find some way to get XP and come back later. That's it, Johnny.
I don't understand you guys. Anyways, well, I'm glad
That
you
game,
are.
oh man, that game's good. Peaceful Games in our Discord's like Divinity Original Sin 2. I've never heard of that game. Dude, it's like, it's the best computer RPG. I think he's a JRPG guy. He's not going to play it. All right.
I mean, good for him. Because you are crazy.
It's so good. I mean, I know.
I hear what
there's
you're
nothing
saying,
more for me to say.
But you've
about
also
that game.
told me that it's ruined your life before. And didn't you? This wasn't the same one that gave you all the hand problems, right?
No, that's Path of Exile.
Oh,
that is also the best game in its genre. But like that, Divinity Original Sin 2 is a handcrafted world that you get immersed in, and it has an ending. Path of Exile, like I understand, is a machine built to addict you and never let go, ever. It's a game you're supposed to play for the rest of your life and never be able to beat and feel good doing it. And it's a very scary game. Like, I would not recommend Path of Exile, but I still think it's like 10 out of 10, the best hack and slash game ever made.
All right. There it is. There's your review.
Yeah. Don't do that to yourself. Count the weeks in your life. Get one of those charts that shows how many weeks are left in your life, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, I can't do Path of Exile.
Tyler, you're a madman. You're a madman. All right. Do we have more for the show? Is that it?
I don't think so.
All right.
This is a long show?
This is a long show.
What are we
and we
talking
meandered.
about?
This should have been a 2-hour episode.
I mean, I go into every episode like, we could just knock this out. We're just going to talk about a few games here. Some of them we don't even know that much about. But it always ends up like this.
Yeah, this is what we do.
We didn't even talk about some of our games. Like Donkey Kong, we're just like, you guys know Donkey Kong. Come on.
Yeah. And yes, we understand that there was more genres that are dead. We'll save it for part 2, guys.
Right.
We're gonna get to part 2s one day. Don't you worry. By episode 400, we'll be there.
Johnny, wait. One of the genres I wrote down was artillery games. Like games where you have 2 artillery cannons on either side of like a hilly terrain shooting at each other, which, yes, technically that was a genre, but there's so few games. Imagine if we talked about that, Johnny. Imagine someone listening to a part 2 of this podcast and having us talk about artillery duel games.
Maybe they'll tune in for part 2 where we define what a rail shooter is correctly.
Okay. Perfect.
Or Johnny sees the light and then has to eat comeuppance pie.
That's what it is.
Let's close it out. Let's do it.
Hey,
Tyler, where can we find you?
I'm on the videogamesage.com and Discord and Instagram. I'm Default Gen, Default Gen, and I'm on TikTok, Johnny. If you want more retro gem miner videos, there's a retro gem miner TikTok at retro gem miner. It's stupid 10-second videos making fun of mostly graded video games. So maybe if you like that sort of thing.
I want you to know that I never signed up for a TikTok account until you did this.
You're like the third person to tell me that. And I have like 7 people who follow the account.
And I'm one of them.
Yep.
Doing it from a friend. Making me mad. All right. Also, Tyler, you left out one place they can find you, and that's going to be at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo coming up here in October, and also in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I'll be in
Be
Las
excited.
Vegas.
Like, we're going to get to see people and talk to people.
I'm not excited. I'm just saying it's a month away. Like, I think the next episode or the next episode.
By the time this one comes out, in what, 2 weeks?
This is coming out tomorrow.
Are you going to edit this?
Yeah, we're on like a weird schedule right now. But we like messed up a little bit and had like a skip week, and then we had to get out an episode kind of early, and then I went on vacation. So like, yeah, this is coming out tomorrow because I really want to stick to our schedule.
I mean, and after that, that's then we jump right into Halloween episodes. We have one more regular episode, then we got 2 Halloween episodes for October.
Yep.
All right. Anyways, stay tuned for those guys. Those are coming at you quick. Anyways, I'm Johnny, and you can find me on Instagram and on our Discord. That's Johnny_Iucci on Instagram and on the Discord just as Johnny. Same with Video Game Sage, you can find me as Johnny. That's it. And apparently you can find me on TikTok following the Retro Gem Miner now. Anyways, that's it. Thanks so much for listening. If you need to contact our other host, Stefan is the Art of NP on Twitter, or just Google that and you'll find him also on Instagram under that. Anyways, thanks so much for listening. I hope you found some of this useful and or at least mildly entertaining for what we did to you tonight. Appreciate it so much. Thank you for everything. Thank you to our Patreons. And that's it for the show. We'll catch you next time. Bye!
Catch you next time? Who says that? What are you talking about? That is our show. Errata for the show. Buck Rogers, the Sega 1982 arcade game, is 100% a rail shooter. I don't know what footage of the game. I was looking at some console port of the game for 2 seconds, and I'm like, this isn't a rail shooter. That is totally a rail shooter. Forget everything I said about Star Wars and Buck Rogers in this entire episode. Also, this episode has kind of made me realize my ignorance of the early history of rail shooters, in the 3D World Runner Space Harrier era. It's making me want to go research it and write a better article somewhere about it. Thank you to 8bit, 8bit.bandcamp.com. He does our intro music, Ape, like the monkey. And also a fun trick if you want to permanently get put on the Patreon list, if you change your name and then modify your pledge in any way, modify it, delete it, come back, whatever, I'll never figure out who you used to be. So if just change your name on Patreon, this is the trick. If you want to leave the Patreon, change your name before you leave, and I won't be able to figure out who you are, and you're just going to be on this list forever. Richard Patron #1 Bowden, Canadian Variant Alert Chris Glidden, Nintendo World Champion Daniel Jacksvik, High-End Collector Andrew Brim, Greeting Stranger, I'm not surprised to see Andrew Shelton around here, 50 Hertz is good enough for me, Andre, Video Games Were Meant to Be Slapped, Brandon Ackley, Brian Gupta, and Pocky and Rocky with Becky, the Strictly Limited Super Rare Bruno, Coin-Operated Cameron Couch, Fat Cat Collector, Chris Jackson, Chris SNK, Too Many Mrozek, Johnny GBA Hookup, Coffee with Mr. Saturn, Playing with Power, Connor Strange, The Last Game You Need for the Set, Corey O'Brien, Unpunched Hang Tab, Dustin Beagle, He Has Returned to Judge This City, Eric Addison, What Are You Buying, GBO Metric, The Actual Shinobi, Jasonic the Kid, Red Pyramid Thing, Jonathan Shados, Joseph Garris, he's just out there having a good time achieving his goals. Proud of you. The Nintendo Tape Archivist, Joseph Leo, the Everything Video Game Archivist. Joe, what do you want to be? Pick a side. The Chosen Undead, Joshua Gelb, Lance Lord Hardstyle Z, Commander Mark Halstead, and this is his favorite store on the Citadel. The Degenerate Matt Fall, Mint Condition, Mora Bros, Mr. Sib, get your loose Genesis carts out of here. Nicholas Mad Dog McCree DiMaggio, Funkoland Employee, Platform Agnostic, Read the Game Shark, The Famicom Box, Retro Game Enthusiast, They Could Be Ghosts and Goblins Twice, Chefish, man, we got this whole LJN crew that's kind of all stuck together. That's so nice. Sean, the Gamer Collective, the New Craft, who could beat Mega Man without the pause trick, Previously Unknown Variant, Tim Walker, From the Internet, Todd Fisher, Can't Put Limits on Collecting, VG Collectaholic. He's excited for some new Atari crap. I don't know. I'm not excited for anything that new Atari puts out. The Millennium, Will Joe, Keeper of the Zelda Variant, 0x Def Code, Previous Game Collector, Adam Kavanaugh, getting the full PS2 set because Stefan won't, all caps. No gods or kings, only Andy Lancaster. What a 9.8, A++ Benji, the actually rare Bird Dog Gaming, dropping the Mario 64 Penguin off the map, Brandon Chalker, Brandon Rogers, whose favorite episode is the wrestling episode, Christopher Piper, still shaking from what he found at Goodwill, still finding deals in 2022, Colton Murphy, A Winner Is Him, David Green, Derek Lauer, who made me edit this show, Don Libby, the hero of time, Double Ugly presents Double Ugly, the official game of the movie, actually understands the Zelda timeline, Jeff Pierce, Jeff the Game Boy Farris, He Is Error, Jeff Russell, Jeremy Jarvis, here for the Pog Talk, Jeremy Matson, and the Order of No Quarter. Joe actually plays his games, Champ Pity, Video Game Art Collector because video games are art, Justin Chichio, Strands Type Game, Chris Shipley, Lateral Movement, who's got a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up. What a horrible night to have living in bits! I'm getting the After Darks out for you. Here, I know I gotta edit them. I have a couple in the back. Michael posted in the Discord right now. Chiaramonti, Nick the Video Game Database, Morgan, Homebrew Mastermind, Divertov, Off the Map, NZ Collector, the other guy who collects Korean releases, Peaceful Games. I forgot who the original guy was, because man, he's the original guy. He has a lot of cool Korean stuff. Dungeon Master, Reed Stubenik, The Promoter, Retro RPG Podcast, Tex, who collects for Jaguar, Tom, Obscure Variant Chaser Chase, Zaventorian, he knows all 97 Nintendo games, 32 bits or less, do the math, Andrew, actually collecting N-Gage, Ben Parker, a bad enough dude to rescue the president, Chesno, all your base are belong to him, Colby, he is Sinistar, Corhagen does what Nintendo don't, Daniel McArdle, who thought this was the Retronauts Patreon, the Modern Database, Danny Gomez, errata for that. Dan Gomez absolutely has a copy of Jurassic Park Trespasser. More errata. There's a soundtrack variant, so there's some copies have a sticker that say like comes with a soundtrack on it, and some don't. Mine doesn't. His does. So I guess you want the soundtrack variant of Trespasser. I don't even know what the soundtrack looks like, but don't make my mistake and get the bad version of Jurassic Park Trespasser. Darius Sadat, welcome to Die! The Philatelist, Dork Overlord, My Childhood PlayStation Idol, Game-Rave.com, Rip and Tear, Jackson Kubler, He is 8-Bit, John Brown, Joseph Rogers got 50,000 on Double Dragon, Collector of Everything, including Atari, Kalen McAteer, Video Game Console Modding Guy, MP3, Sam, Sega Mark III, Marks, Sean the Video Game, Illuminati LaCroix, and Hedgemon of the Geek Empire, Valdor the Great. Thank you guys so much.